Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. What if Naruto banished and married with Esdeath? Movie. My name is something I learned being plastered on my cell door. I was a war orphan in the village that was my prison, or should I say the village where my prison was built in. Since I could remember, the village threw all of the orphans into the prison and had us fight for the cages in the council's sick enjoyment. Only those that survived till they were 9 years old were allowed to become a ninja. That is what my village was pretty much known for, training ruthless assassins, spies, and saboteurs. The thing was that they didn't only make us fight each other. No, they made us fight monsters they captured. By the time I was 6, I had killed a few monsters, and had it not been for the mercy of a lady vampire, I would have probably starved to death. At the time I didn't consider it much of a kindness, but as I grew older I understood it as it was. She bites me, and after a few minutes I grew incredibly hungry. I felt a thirst that made my throat hurt. I launched myself against her and fed on her blood till there was nothing left. She could have easily pushed me aside, but instead, she smiled as I drank all her blood, and she was smiling as her body slowly turned to ashes. The arena where we fought was underground, so I never had to worry about sunlight, and as I turned 7 I figured out that drinking the blood of my enemy didn't only sat my hunger, but healed me, and I would gain the knowledge and blood traits of those I drank from. It got so bad that they began to talk to me like I was a monster myself, but finally, after on my 9th birthday, I was allowed to train. Not that I needed it, I had many rogue ninjas to drink my fill from over the years. The only side effect was that my body aged at an extremely slow rate. I stopped aging altogether when I turned 21. That is when it hit me, the pain of watching my friends and eventually lovers grow old and die. I lived for thousands of years, and never once did I stop training, but I guess I also became rather detached. I once felt sorry for killing someone or even a monster, but now that I think of it I find it silly, almost foolish. Civilizations rose and fell and nothing seemed to have changed for me. It was always a eat or be eaten sort of world. That is when I first met the man that would unify the world. I actually offered to give him my gift of a longer life, but he laughed. No thank you, Naruto, I don't think I could live like you do. When I meet my end I want to die as a human. I appreciate the help with making these new weapons, my friend. But even as I die, these weapons shall defend my empire for centuries after my death. I looked at my friend and told him he was foolish having so much faith in humans. When someone gained power they always wanted more, and that could corrupt them to things that were no longer human. He asked me how could I say that, having so much power and skills myself. I looked at my friend and laughed, and since when did I ever tell you I was a human, to begin with? Hunting all these dangerous beasts was exciting, and if I had to admit it, there was one type of creature that I simply loved to fight, and they were large, covered in scales, and some could breathe fire. I just loved fighting these dragons, they were always so much fun. As my friend died and I saw the looks his wife was giving me, I decided to move out of the capital. I guess I could understand. I looked exactly the same way as the day I met her, and she, on the other hand, became old, wrinkly, and very abrasive in the way of talking to people, or maybe that was just with me. A small town in the south of the capital was the place I ended up calling home. I helped the people build their homes, kept the place safe, and even helped with the planting and collecting of crops every once in a while. 3 kids were practically like my own children. They were orphans, and I taught them everything I learned in regards to skills from my academy days. Watching these kids grow up is a joy, and I guess I really liked the feeling of pride as I saw them each become young men and women. Tatsumi followed the path of the blade, much like me. Seo took the path of the dagger, and Iyatsu was an archer that made me feel quite proud as I saw the accuracy of his shots. It was a sad day when my 3 kids decided to go to the capital and earn enough money to buy the land the village was on. As long as we didn't own the land, the imperial government could demand immense amounts in taxes, so much that not even with my shadow clones I could keep everyone in the village well fed. The second sad thing in my life was that I realized since the days with my friend the emperor was that humans lost the ability to use chakra altogether. It was almost as if the sage of the 6 paths had removed his blessing from the entire human race. My students knew the technical and knowledge-based skills of a ninja, but they could never be the same caliber as my old friends were. They could never perform the simplest of jutsus and could never even imagine using ninjutsu or genjutsu. After a solid week of worrying about my 3 kids, I decided to return to the capital. My only goal was to find my kids, and if someone dared harm them I would make the person or people pay. Nobody harms my kids and gets away with it. As I walked towards the capital I saw something rather amusing. A pair of merchants were having trouble getting the wheel of their cart unstuck. As I walked over to see if I could help them, a large dragon came out of the ground. It's an earth dragon, run for your lives. What good would it do to run? The thing was able to kill them as they run anyways. I walked over between the dragon and the merchants. I looked at the dragon. Yay. I know you are bored. Come on, leave these humans alone and come and have some fun fighting me instead. As long as you don't mind becoming my lunch, I am so very hungry. I could swear that Earth Dragon began laughing at me. I took hold of my katana and began to run towards him. He threw massive boulders at me, and I cut his right arm off. Oh come on, regrow your limb, get up. The fun is barely started. We fought each other for 5 minutes, but I cut off both limbs and his tail off. He managed to scratch me here and there, causing my armor to become ripped and stained in my blood. As I saw that he was no longer able to fight, I jumped up and landed on his shoulder. I bit him and began to have my fill of his blood. He frantically tried to push me away, but it was no good. The more blood I drank, the weaker he got, and I was very hungry. I finished drinking his blood and the corpse fell down to the ground in a heap. I walked over to the merchants, who looked more scared of me than they had been of the dragon. Come on, move aside. I will get your wagon out of that. I walked over and picked the cart up with one hand and set it on the road. Man, that was both frightening and amazing. Mind telling me where are you headed? Maybe we could even offer you a lift. I looked at him and I knew what he really wanted. He wanted someone to escort him as far as he could get my help. That would be nice. I am headed towards the capital. My kids went there to make it big in the Imperial military to help our village, but I can't help to worry about them. I am headed to see what is happening with them. They haven't sent a letter in a long time. The merchant next to the man who offered me a ride looked at me with a sad look on his face. I wouldn't go there expecting a happy reunion. In the capital, it's the people you need to watch out for. They are more dangerous than the dragon you just killed. As we got closer to the capital, I heard things I would never expect from the empire my friend established. The things were horrible: rampant corruption, the civilians didn't feel safe, and they were scared of their government more than the threat of monsters. The worst is the nobles were not as noble as the title implied. The imperial army was a band of criminals under the command of a power-hungry and cruel prime minister. I say my thanks to the merchants and I began walking through the streets of the capital. Everything looked beautiful, clean, and showing the economy was doing great, but I knew better than to trust the gilded exterior that I was looking at. It was all a show, and one look in a young woman's face I knew how miserable people in the capital really were. I decided to go to a bar and order myself a drink. A rather large censored woman sat down right in front of me and smiled at me. Her outfit sure was not leaving much to the imagination. Her hair was golden blonde and she looked like she was trying to con me out of my money. You don't get as old as I am without knowing how to look beneath the underneath. Hey, handsome. I have been looking at you since entered the capital. Can't help but to think that you are looking for something or someone. Buy a girl, a few drinks, and I will help you find what you are looking for. I guess it couldn't hurt, and I got to spend some time with this blonde knockout, so I saw no reason to say no. Sure, bartender, give me a couple of mugs of your best beer for me and this lady here. I could see on his face that he didn't think of her as anything remotely worthy to be called a lady. He placed the 2 mugs and left in a hurry as soon as I paid him. I guess this bar doesn't run tabs. I am looking for my 3 kids. They had the crazy idea of coming to the capital to make it big and help purchase the village we live in. I haven't heard anything from them, so naturally I got worried. That is when the smile she was wearing this entire time suddenly vanished. You are right to worry about that. I happen to know a family that likes to toy with people from the country. I just hope those guys take care of them. Who are you talking about? She laughed as I asked. You must really live in the boonies for you never to hear of Night Raid. They are a bunch of assassins that kill off corrupt nobles and rich bastards in this hellhole we used to call the capital. I didn't like where this was going, so tell me, where can I find this so-called family that plays with people's lives? She took out a map and with a quick glance I pretty much remembered the entire map. The capital had changed very little since the days of my friend's rule. She pointed at a large mansion. They live here, but they have a ton of guards. They will not let you in normally. They do look for poor and destitute outsiders. Maybe you can pretend and get to ask them about your kids if you play the pity card. My eyes must have activated because she was looking at me with a mixture of awe and fear. Don't you worry, if they know where my kids are they will tell me. If they dared harm them, however, they will wish this night raid you mentioned get to them before I get through with them. For those that harm my precious people, I have no mercy. I began to walk towards the main bridge. I had a plan. If I used the henge jutsu I could look exactly like someone from an impoverished village. This would get them to notice me. Once inside I would ask them if they had seen my kids. I, however, will have several shadow clones use the shadows and follow me. My shadow clones will find out if my kids are in their mansion, and what is the truth about their little family. May the sage have mercy on their souls if they dared harm a hair on one of my kids. I slumped against the side of the road pretending to go to sleep. I heard the horse and the cart coming down the road. I knew what I needed to do, pretend like I was falling asleep. This was all part of my entry strategy. Sure enough, I felt a hand on my shoulder. Oh me, oh my, what an unfortunate young man. I think I will help him. Come on young man, why are you sleeping on the road like that and not in your own bed? I pretended to awake and looked at her. I simply have the worst luck ever. I came looking for my girlfriend and her 2 brothers. The first thing that happens, a thief steals all my money. The city guards tells me I am wasting their time, beat me up and kick me out of their office. Now I am without money, hungry and tired from walking all over town. Why did she come to this awful place? We were happier in our village down south. I heard her pretend to cry. Indeed you are unlucky, but worry not. I know my family will help you. First I need to take you to my family home, give you a warm meal and a place to sleep. Once you tell my father and mother, I am sure they can use their connections to help you find these people you care so much about. One of the guards near her helped me stands. My lady is a very merciful person, she is always helping those in need. Lean on me and I will help you board the carriage. I got to the side of the rider, or at least I tried. She stopped me and told me I should ride inside with her. After all, I was injured, tired and hungry. The word mansion did not do this place justice. It was a palace and I knew my shadow clones would have quite the challenge in finding everything I needed to find. I knew that I needed to buy some time. I walked with her towards the living room, and there they were, her parents. With all together they looked like a cozy little family. So tell me, do you have any idea why your girlfriend and her brothers would come to the capital? Is your village far from here? I looked at him and smiled. My village is under extreme taxation due to the empire. They once told me they wanted to come to the capital, make enough money to pay for the land our village was on, and thus lower the tax on the village. I, of course, told her it was never that easy. I sat down on a chair in front of him. My village is a few miles south of the capital. We are mainly traders, farmers, and ranchers. I was the one to heal the injured since I knew a bit of herbal medicine. As soon as I said that I felt a little dizzy, the clones found everything I needed. Indeed, the family was a collection of sadists, and proud sadists at that. They wrote detailed accounts what they did to people from outside the capital, mostly villages that were far from the capital. The torture, poisons, and horrors were quite familiar to me. My clones even informed me that they managed to get my gift into the food for tonight, food that the entire family was supposed to enjoy. You must be hungry. Why don't you join us for dinner? I happen to be very interested in herbal medicine myself. I would like to hear how you treated the people of your village. The mother sure wanted another thing, since her diary spoke of intentionally infecting people with incurable illnesses and using poisons to cause pain. After the meal, I will contact a friend in the military. He will send a few platoons of our best to find your precious girlfriend and her brothers. I promise you will see them again before you expect. I do need their names, can you please tell me their names? I looked at him as we walked towards the dining room. The food was already served. My girlfriend is named Seo. She has long silky black hair in a ponytail. Her brother Tatsumi has dirty blonde hair and green eyes, and her other brother has black hair and blue eyes, Ieyasu. He looked like he was speaking with a guard and the guard left. I knew he was saying that once I was knocked out I would be placed in the storehouse like they did to all the others. Please sit down. Mind telling me of your herbal medicines? I can't wait to hear what you came up with. As we were all seated, and we all began to eat, I decided to drop my fake personality. Well, to tell you the truth, I am not much of a healer. My talents lie in something much more conducive to taking life rather than saving it. I am told that I am extremely talented in the art of torture and interrogations. They pretended to look shocked. Good, I decided to continue. I also know of your family's little hobby. I am sorry to have lied to you, but I really wanted to meet fellow poison and death aficionados. It is extremely hard to find people that share our, shall we say, unique areas of interest. I took a small tube out of my pocket and decided to hand it over to his wife. What you hold in your hand is iocane powder. Smell but don't touch or taste. She did smell it and she began shaking her head. I smell nothing at all. I took the tube back and placed the cap on it. What you didn't smell is one of the world's deadliest poisons. It is flavorless, colorless, blends perfectly with liquids, and it is impossible to trace. I developed ways to make this extremely effective poison be slow acting. You see, normally this thing kills within seconds of ingesting. Her father now was really fascinated by the look on his face. Why would you delay the poison? What purpose would it serve? You risk someone giving your intended victim an antidote. I smiled at him, except there is no antidote. The poison works by enlarging the pores in the victim's stomach. It makes it possible for the person's stomach acid to leave the stomach and thus dissolve the organs of the victim. First, you feel an itching in the back of your throat, then the pain begins in your stomach, and begins to spread. Once it reaches the place where your bladder is, the victim will die within seconds. Even under an autopsy, the coroner will simply say that the victim died of a bleeding ulcer. I think you will also want to know that I know everything you three wrote in your diaries, and even what you would do to me. Except that the delay poison we talked about, it was added to the food you and your guards ate. Now the family began to laugh like maniacs, finally disregarding the illusion of the caring family. Except you ate the food too. We might die, but you were going to die just like that whore you called your girlfriend and her two brothers. As I expected it, the look of pain on their faces and confusion was priceless. The father of the little sadist family was the first to die, then the mother, whose insides came out as a putrid mixture as she tried to throw up to get rid of the poison. The girl looked at me angry, in pain and confused. Why are you not dying like we are? I smiled and looked at her contorting face. I could not help but to feel happy that my children were avenged. It is quite simple. I am immune to the poison. Having worked with it for so long, and taking small doses of it has made me immune to the poison. Now die, you lying little psycho. Die for killing my daughter and my sons. I hope my friend has a special place in hell for you and your parents. The illusion of my henge finally came undue and I ran towards the warehouse. What I saw made me wish I could revive them all and make them suffer that death 1,000 times. Seiya was mutilated beyond recognition. Tatsumi was quartered, burned, drowned and lastly decapitated. Ieyasu was the last to die, as he stretched out his bloody hand and touched mine. I am sorry we failed, father. I am sorry we couldn't help the village. Some ninjas we turned out to be. I smiled at him and I knew he suffered the longest and didn't say anything about me or the training I gave them. They kept the secret even as death was assured. You three have made me very proud, my beloved children. You can rest easy now, I have avenged you three. Go now, my son, and tell your sister and brother the psycho family was punished and you three made me very proud. Go now and enter the realm of the sage. Tell him I said you three are magnificent ninjas. My 3 children were dead. All I could think of was burning their bodies and placing their ashes in a storage scroll. As I burned their bodies and placed each in a separate seal, I couldn't help but cry as I remembered everything that we lived together. I took the scroll and placed a small kiss on it as I sealed it shut. Are you done? We will want some explanation on what you have done tonight. I looked and found a man wearing a particularly interesting suit of armor standing right in front of me. I knew that no one was near me, so where did this big guy come from? Not much to tell. The family of this mansion tortured and killed my children. I avenged them and did so in an equally painful manner. They killed my children. If I was to have any regrets, it's that I can't revive them and killed them a few hundred times. So tell me, guardsman, are you going to try and kill me? That made the big guy in armor begin laughing out loud. I didn't think what I said was that funny. Not at all. You see, we actually were planning to kill the very same people you killed. Except you killed them before we could. I guess I should say that we are Night Raid. You probably heard about us. I looked at him and smiled. Sure, I heard about your little group from a blonde beauty with the nicest censored I ever have seen. Out of nowhere, someone tackled me and I found myself being hugged. The exact same blonde, but somehow her hair grew longer and had kitty ears and a tail, her hands looked like claws. Ah, that is the nicest thing anyone has ever said about me. You sure know how to flatter a girl like me. A young woman holding a black katana came towards me. Well, I am not too happy about you stealing my prey, but at least the boss will be happy the mission got done in time. What that woman hugging you should say is that you were coming with us. Our boss needs to hear an explanation why you did this. I walked towards her and looked at her sword. Sure, I got nothing better to do anyways. Nice sword, by the way. It looks cursed to me. Must make it easier to kill people. But you people might not want to make me angry. You wouldn't want me to be angry. I happen to be vampiric in nature, and if you make me angry enough, I might decide to make you all my dinner. Out of nowhere, a black dome appeared and we all appeared outside a large building that was carved from the side of a mountain. The blonde woman with the nice rack was named Leonie, the one with the nice sword was named Akame, and the one that was looking at me with a look of, this guy is just a pathetic bug, was named mine. The guy in the armor had to be the one that didn't surprise me as much. He reminded me of Lee and Mike guys sometimes. He had the single strangest hairdo I ever was seen, but he seems to have worked out a lot. He was a mass of muscles, and the fact that he was gay didn't trouble me one bit. Who am I to judge when I spent 3 days as a maid to get the information for my mission? The fact that I had to use the henge to appear as a woman, and had to act all manners of demure and cutesy left me with a pretty open mind it seems. The place looked nice, the kitchen left something to be desired, and everyone got a room of their own so at least I could have some privacy. Leonie continued the guided tour until we found Akame cooking what looked to be the carcass of a giant chicken. Akame is sort of our wild child. Hey Akame, what are you doing? She just looked at us and said that she was cooking dinner. I will give you Leonie a piece, but nothing for that guy. He is not a part of Night Raid. I felt a bit upset as she said that. Well fine, you can keep your roasted beast. I hope you choke on it. I don't need you to give me squat. Nobody ever did. Why should you be any different? I began to walk away before Leonie asked me what I considered an obvious question. Where are you going? I told her since this particular group of killers was not going to give their guest any food, I needed to go out and hunt something for myself. She began to laugh. You know there are a lot of danger beasts in the area. We even saw a water dragon a few days ago. Do you still want to go hunt by yourself? I laughed at her attempt of scaring me. I continued walking and she for some odd reason continued walking behind me. A dragon would sure be a nice dinner. I sure hope nobody else killed it. I haven't had a dragon in days. As I came to the place where Leonie told me the dragon was supposed to be, he came out of the water trying to look intimidating. How he really looked to me was something else altogether. He looked delicious. I used my katana to slice his hands off and applying fire chakra through the blade made the cut sear the flesh so no blood was wasted. I cut off its massive tail and by the time I was done the one looking frightened was not me or Leonie. No, Leonie did look a bit more afraid than the now mutilated dragon. You came out thinking that we would be a pair of scared idiots, an easy meal you probably thought, but don't you know? When you mess with a vampire you always end up bone dry. I sank my fangs into his neck and enjoyed the taste of his blood, and it was tasty. I must have looked rather scary since Leonie didn't say a word. As I had my fill I summoned 12 shadow clones and had them collect the remaining blood. They squeezed that dragon like he was a lemon. In the end, I had a storage scroll with 6 good pints of blood, for a rainy day. Things didn't go bad in my storage scrolls, it made perfect storage places for food, or things you would think normally would rot or go bad. I looked at what was left of the dragon, looking more like ground meat. Thanks for the meal, it was delicious. Say Leonie, does you want to do something with what's left? Why are you looking at me like that? Why so serious? She walked over and looked at me and then at my hands. My sword was strapped right back on my back. You looked like a demon out of hell. Your sword was on fire and you were sinking your teeth into that dragon. No matter how that thing tried to push you away you held on. I didn't understand why was the big deal. I told you I was going off to get myself a dinner, so I did. The more strong the person the more satisfying and tasty the blood is. If I really needed to I could survive for a month on tonight's dinner alone. Do you want some? I have 6 more pints of the good stuff, I don't mind sharing you know. That is when from behind a tree came a woman who clearly lost an eye and an arm. She had a mechanical prosthetic and was showing off more cleavage than Leonie was and that is saying something. That is good to know, you know dragon blood can fetch quite a bit in the black market. So you were the one that beat my people to their target. My name is Najenda and I am the leader of Night Raid. I came to find you once Akame told me you were off hunting for dinner. It is only appropriate that now you tell me your name since I told you mine. I also would like to know why you killed our targets. What could possibly motivate someone your age to kill in such brutal ways? I walked over to a tree and as my hand began to glow, I hit the tree causing the tree to fall to the ground as if it was cut. The standing part of the trunk showed signs of my chakra having cut it down. I sat down on the piece of lumber and looked at her. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, vampire ninja, the very last ninja as far as I am aware of. As for age, I would suggest that you don't be deceived by my appearance. I am older than most of the people in this world. The first emperor was a good friend of mine. That should give you a good idea how old I am. I began to continue to strike the piece of lumber as I continued talking with the leader of the little group that invited me here. As for the reason, that family lured and killed my kids. They may have been adopted, but I raised them since they were toddlers. I loved them as if they were indeed my flesh and blood. If someone killed your children, would you let their murderers remain unpunished? As I finished I tossed one to Leonie and one to Najenda. I cut some rather sturdy stools out of the wood using my chakra and they both sat down. I see, so you wanted to avenge the murder of your children. So tell me Naruto, what do you plan to do now? Are you loyal to the Empire? You just told me that you were good friends with the first emperor after all. I got up and I must have looked very angry because she stopped saying what she was going to say next. My friend wanted a place where people could live in peace, where children could grow up, to be honest, honorable, and being taught how to be that good by their loving parents. This thing you called the Empire would have made my friend cry so much that he would die. I am a killer, and the corrupt creatures in that place are nothing but prey. If you want for me to leave and you guys don't attack me, I see no reason why we should be enemies, but I will always hunt and always kill. I have done so before the Empire began, and I will do so long after the Empire is nothing but a memory. The real question is, what does Night Raid and you as their leader want with little old me? It was one of your subordinates that invited me here after all. She smiled and looked at Leonie. Actually, I think you are already part of Night Raid since you pretty much were given a whole tour of our base. The only real question is, can you do anything besides killing? I walked over to her and offered my hand to help her get up from her stool. As she took hold of it, she saw a shadow clone do the same for Leonie. I am a man of many talents. I had to be, since I had to take care of myself since I was a baby. Leonie began laughing and she gave my clone a hug that it dispelled, leaving hugging thin air. Looks like we got another wild child. Next thing this black-wearing hunk is going to say is that his first kill he did it when he was 8. I looked at my new boss and began shaking my head as I heard Leonie. Don't be ridiculous, Leonie. I was actually 6. I had killed dozens of people by the time I was 8. I grew up in an arena pit after all. Najenda. Leonie and me walked back to the base. Several people I didn't know were standing there. One that looked a lot like an emo with green hair, which was kind of weird and yet familiar in some ways. The next was a glass-wearing beauty, and last but certainly not least the little girl with pink hair that was looking at me before as if I was a bug for her to crush underfoot. I really should punish you for taking your time killing your target. I really should. You even let this guy take the target all by his lonesome. Since most don't know, let me introduce you to our newest member of Night Raid. This is Naruto Uzumaki, and from what he tells me, he said he is both a vampire and a ninja. That made several people look a little worried. Didn't I tell you not to make me angry, or I would make you my dinner? What exactly did you think I meant? Bullet, as he introduced himself, told me that they figured I was a cannibal. He even said that there were several imperial officers and officials that like to eat human flesh. Well, I don't eat human flesh, so the question is, which is my room? Or do I sleep out here? The boss pretty much told Akame that my room was going to be the one right next to her, since for some reason it was always empty. Like we want to sleep anywhere near her. She tried to kill one of us when we tried to wake her up. Only because you tried to wake me up by groping me, Lubbock. I guess he was the super pervert from our little group. There seems to be always one. As we all walked into the dining room, she suddenly realized that she didn't have enough food for all the members, especially Leonie, since she told me she was, as she called it, a hearty eater. I told her not to worry, just to show me where the kitchen was. A dozen shadow clones went out on a food gathering run and 6 stayed with me ready to cook up what they found. It took them less than 10 minutes to find more than enough for a little feast. Me and my 6 shadow clones that remained carried the platters of the food we just cooked up. I don't think I ever saw that many people looked both shocked and salivating at the same time. Alright people, dig in before it gets cold. Don't worry about me, I had my dinner already. They all began eating with gusto. I guess they really liked my cooking. Akame did look a bit angry as she ate. Guess she was upset about something I did. As everyone finished eating and Leonie patted her stomach, I decided a little after meal shock was called for, since they didn't even say a single word of thank you. And I didn't even use an ounce of poison in the food. I happen to know 1300 poisons, all which I can make with the stuff in the forest around this place. Not that it has anything to do with cooking. Najenda was the only one smiling as I said that. Well, at least I know who to go if I need some poison made or an antidote. What were those copies of yourself that carried the food and the one that burst into smoke when Leonie hugged him a little too tightly, if you don't mind me asking? I looked at her and sat down on a chair in front of her. They are a technique I can use. They are called shadow clones. They can do everything I can, and when they get a significant enough of a hit or dispel, I get the memories of that clone. Like for instance, Leonie is not wearing a bra. She laughed as I said that. Well, technically this thing I am wearing is a sports bra, but I get what you are saying. So for tomorrow's target, mine and Naruto will take care of it. We are going after the only blood relative of the Prime Minister, which should really make the corrupt bastard know he is not as safe as he thinks he is. I looked at the pink-wearing girl and then at my new boss. I don't need help taking care of one idiot. I can do this by myself. Guess mine pretty much wanted to say the same thing I wanted to say. I decided to go outside and work out a little bit, just my usual warm-up. As I finished, I decided to take a bath in a nearby lake. It was quite refreshing, and the crocodile was a nice after-dinner snack. I got dressed and decided to go to bed. I kept dreaming of my days with my kids, seeing them happily train and how proud they made me feel seeing so enthusiastic. The last part was how I found them. It's something it would always make my blood boil. The spirits of my children looked at me and smiled. Father, this was no one's fault but our own. We should have listened to you and looked beneath the underneath. Don't torment yourself with our deaths any longer. Find another happiness in your life, so we may rest in peace. Seo was always the one that was the most caring of the three. It was no surprise to me that she be the one that would try to cheer me up. I woke up and touched my face. I guess I must have cried in my sleep. I went to the office of my new leader and knocked on the door. Is that you, Naruto? Come on in. I got to tell you some things about your target. Don't mind the clutter, I've been checking reports about potential targets. As I walked in, I knew two things: she was definitely single, and if she had her office like this, she was liable to remain single for a long time to come. As I was saying, your target is Iokal, the only relative of Prime Minister Honest. He has a sick hobby of kidnapping young women, raping them, and then whipping them to death. As for your partner on this mission, she seems to be still asleep. Would you mind waking her up? I think you will not have any trouble doing that. I decided to walk towards the door and told her as long as she doesn't mind a broken door. As I walked up to her door, I saw a drawing that's supposed to be her, and the name Mine written in big red letters. I beat my fist on the door. Mine, wake the hell up, we got work to do. If you don't get up, I am doing the mission alone and leaving you here to explain why you didn't come with me to the boss. I heard someone scrambling and running towards the door I just ended beating my fist on. She came out wearing yet another pink dress. You are quite heartless, you know that. You should know it takes longer for girls to get ready. I looked at her. I was feeling still quite angry about my dream, and I had no patience for her insults. Then go to sleep early. Wake up and get dressed so that I don't have to waste time coming to get you. Unless you want to end up my breakfast, I would watch what you say to me. Yes, I am heartless, but you are irresponsible. Now come on, we have a long way to go and you can't run as fast as I can. She immediately said something that made me even angrier. Why not ask Lubbock to teleport us? I flat out told her that unlike her, he already left for his mission. Had you woke up early, he could have done that, but since you tried to have your beauty sleep, we have to walk. Why are you in such a bad mood? Do you really dislike having to do this mission with me that much? I had no time for this. I told her how would she feel to dream about how 3 of her kids getting killed while she watched. My job, as far as I understood it, was to be her spotter and backup if needed. In a way, I saw why no woman would willingly sleep with the man, as I looked at him surrounded by his guards. This guy was hideous, and I mean he makes some danger monsters look almost human by comparison. If I was a guessing man, I would say this man's body was 90% fat. He simply made a pot-belly pig look lean by comparison. If a big enough danger beast ate him whole, the poor beast would die from a heart attack. So he is surrounded by a few dozen guards. Do you still think this will be easy for you, Mine? She didn't even stop looking through the scope of her weapon when she answered me. Piece of cake. I can pick him off with my eyes closed. I still don't know why they sent you with me. I could do this alone. I knew nothing was as easy as it seems. My instincts were screaming that there was something that she was overlooking. I sent 5 clones to hide around us just to be sure. She took a deep breath and from the weapon she was aiming, a light began to build up. As soon as she let out her breath, the weapon fired an array of light that shot right through our target's chest. As soon as he fell dead from the way his body was pushed by the firepower of Mine's weapon, I knew that some of the guards had actually found us. In a matter of seconds, we were surrounded by 5 people. So I gather you are the personal guard of that idiot we just killed. Guys, there is no need to throw away your lives. You can leave here and we both can go our separate way. Several of the men looked at a man who was just laughing as I finished saying that. I wish it could be so easy, but if we don't capture you to explain what happened to our boss, the Prime Minister will kill all of us and have us for dinner. I counter your generous offer. You 2 surrender, and if you tell us where the rest of the night raid is, we might even let both of you live. I guess it couldn't be helped. Well, I guess there was no way to avoid this. Well, I do hope you 5 have a better luck in your next life. But a word to the unwise. Next time check your surroundings before you try to corner your enemy. They all thought I was bluffing, till I clicked my fingers and under each of the men a small explosion was set off, burning the men to ashes. I smiled as I looked at the shocked look on Mine's face. I walked over to the place where the man I spoke to had been. A shadow clone came out of the shadows and handed me the man's hip pouch. Well, Mine, no reason to stay around. Come on, we need to report our mission. Like I said to the boss, this job was simply too easy. and the enemy was as weak as they were stupid. They rushed to try and capture us, and when they thought they could get the rest of our guys, they asked us to turn traitor. I know for a fact that there are no traitors with us. To ask is like saying that the Prime Minister embezzles so much of the Empire's own money to open an orphanage and help the needy, which never happens. I had to agree with mine as she said that. We both walked back to the point where we could be taken back to our base, without having to worry if some idiot is following us. As soon as we walked into the base, Najenda was waiting for us to hear our report. Mission successful, 1 dead corrupt bastard dead, and 5 of his own elite guards to boot. I guess I really had no reason to worry at all. Naruto took care of the 5 guards by himself. I just wish he told me when he planted those explosives. I looked at mine as she finished giving her report. Why should you worry where the explosives were? They wouldn't go off unless I trigger them in the first place. As to when I did that while you were looking for the target through the scope of your weapon. I just like to keep all possible situations in check. The boss smiled as I said that. That is a good way to think about it, Naruto. Nice to see someone in our group thinking outside the box. You too must want a bath, some food, and rest. I need to speak with Naruto in private, but you are free to go mine. Somehow I got the feeling this was not going to be a friendly chat. Almost like someone had been keeping an eye on me. As soon as we were alone, she told me to follow her to her office. As soon as we entered and the door was closed, she walked towards her desk and turned around to face me. Why did you offer the chance for the elite guard to leave in peace? Don't you know that they could have told others your identities? I know you prepared for what actually I also would expect to happen, but I need to know why you offered them that choice. It was almost merciful on your part. I knew that she worried about the safety of the group, and I couldn't very well blame her for it. I am not merciful with the enemy, especially ones in league with the bastards that killed my kids. I had other plans for those guards. Had they accepted, I was planning to place a seal on the leader by shaking his hand. Once he got back to his superiors and reported that he met a pair of assassins from Night Raid, the seal would activate and everything within that building would be crushed to dust. I did not offer them any mercy. I was planning on using them to kill high-ranking officers in league with the Prime Minister. I saw her nod her head. Guess I jumped to conclusions. You were planning to use this to eliminate potential dangers to our group. I must admit that did not occur to me as I heard the report from Lubbock. Why would you go to such extremes for a group you just joined? I looked at her and asked her one question. Why did she assume I was doing it only for the group's benefit? I had a stake in this also. It was the Prime Minister that allowed the sick family that killed my kids to do as they pleased. They did it to improve the stock of poisons and interrogations tactics for him anyways. This sick bastard pretty much had a hand in the deaths of my kids. If someone is in league with them and they are as corrupt or too blindly loyal to the bastard, I might want to put them to good use. Meaning the more of the troops loyal to the Prime Minister we get rid of, the better. She came up to me and placed her hand on my shoulder. You certainly don't think like someone would expect from someone that looks as young as you do. I looked at her and smiled. I told you once already. I was the best friend of the first emperor. Guess you need more proof. I was the one that hunted the danger beast he later used to make his imperial arms, and I was the best man at his wedding. If that is not enough, I was the godfather to his son. I've been alive for such a long time, that even the land has changed shape in the time I've been alive. I remember continents that are no longer there, rivers that became oceans, hills that became mountains, and forests that became deserts. I never lie to you, boss, and it hurts a little that you would think I would. She laughed as she took her hand off my shoulder and said that she too liked to think outside the box, and being so close to the first emperor, it would not be out of the realm of possibilities that I was loyal to the current emperor. I pulled on a nearby chair and sat down. My friend had a wonderful dream, a dream I didn't mind helping to make come true. I stayed with him as his prime minister and even till his grandson took the throne. The kid would not listen to what I tried to teach him. I told him the empire exists thanks to the people, and as emperor, it was his duty to be their constant protector. He was an adult by most standards, but he was also very much into things that made him happy. I got tired of his constant excuses, so I left. I built a home with a few friends, and we made a pretty decent living there for a time. I eventually adopted 3 little kids, and I raised them as my children. I taught them everything I could about being a ninja. I looked at her and then looked down, shaking my head. You pretty much know what happened to my kids. I adopted because I can never have kids with anyone. Believe me, I tried and the result was not pretty at all. She put her hand on my shoulder and she asked me in a rather hushed voice about who that woman was. I told her she was my long-dead wife, the only girl I ever married. Her name was Susanna, she liked to be called Susie. She then grabbed my shoulder harder and told me to look at her. Susie was the nickname of the sister of the first emperor. You mean to tell me you married the sister of the first emperor? I didn't see why she was so upset about. I got up from the chair and looked at her. She backed off from me. I did. I told you he was my best friend. We spent a lot of time together and we built the empire that you know now. So, of course, I got to know his sister and even married her. Why are you acting like this is a major issue? I am not of this bloodline. Therefore the imperial arm that is in the castle will not react to me, and thus I am not eligible to ascend to the throne. As we walked back I was called to the office of our boss, and I was supposed to go alone. Mine was perfectly fine with this and she didn't mind it one bit. I somehow got the feeling that she wanted to talk about what she learned about me with the others, idle gossip and such. The other reason was that she just flat out didn't like me at all. As I walked in I saw our leader looking rather upset. Naruto, you just got back from a mission, and I should really let you rest, but I think I need your help dealing with a particularly tough target. You and I are going right now to meet the person who requested this target's elimination. It is traditional for Night Raid to acknowledge or refuse to take on the elimination of a target in person. So my advice is for you to grab a bottle of that dragon blood you liked so much and come with me. It's something you will eventually have to do, and thus as your leader it is my responsibility to show you we do things. I still didn't understand why the meeting was in a graveyard of all place. As soon as I saw the woman crying in front of a grave I understood why. I guess since we are pretty much killing people the saying would fit, not that it made me very happy to hear it. No rest for the wicked, since when is punishing corrupt bastards that kill innocent people a wicked thing? The next mission I got to do it alone, or at least part of the mission. Najenda and I met a young woman on a graveyard in the capital's poor district. She told us a rather disturbing story about how a captain in the guard was taking bribes from a sleazy oil merchant. He had her future husband killed to cover up some of his shady deals. He had the corrupt captain, a man by name Ogre, accuse him falsely of a crime. He was beheaded in the public square and she was forced to watch the entire thing, from the whip down right to seeing the man she loved to have his head chopped off. Don't worry, miss. We will take care of this and no one else will have to go through what you did, especially by the actions of that corrupt captain. Your loved one shall be avenged. She hugged Najenda, crying and thanking her over and over again. She was still in tears as she left. Why did she hug me, Naruto? You were the one that tried to make her feel better. I guess she must have found me scary, I told her, and she laughed as she went back to the hideout. I, on the other hand, wanted to have a word with Captain Ogre. The man fit the description exactly, scars in all the mentioned places on his face, wearing armor, and was rather large and physically fit. I walked over to him and he looked at me with a strange look on his face. Captain Ogre, do you mind if we spoke privately? I have heard a few things I would very much like your help in explaining. He faked a smile and put his large hand on my shoulder. Sure. I don't see why not. I have a better idea. Why don't we go get a couple of drinks and I will answer all your doubts, my treat. This screamed ambush to me, but it would make little to no difference to me. If he did plan to ambush me, 1 or 100 enemies were no problems to me. As we walked into the bar I asked for tea. He of course went and ordered an alcoholic drink. You know my name, but what should I call you? What has troubled you so much that you found it necessary to ask me? Most people are too scared to even talk to me. The name is Naruto, and I keep hearing that you've been taking bribes and helping corrupt business owners to use innocent people as scapegoats. He laughed as I said that and took a drink from his mug. I sure as hell have been doing that, and I feel no remorse whatsoever doing it. I was not always like this, you know. I was an honest, hard-working person. I sort of lost faith in the way the world is. I watched people rise in ranks faster than I ever did simply because they came from wealthy families. I got so sick of being passed over promotions that I decided to become wealthy by any means I could. Nobody gave a damn about me. Why should I care about others? You might be wondering, why is getting promoted so important? It's simple really. Everyone from the rank captain and below get dismal retirement benefits. If I wanted to have enough to live on in my retirement, I needed to be promoted. Now the only problem I have is that those blasted Night Raid clowns are probably planning to try and kill me. What would you do, Naruto, if you were a member of the Night Raid? I finished my tea and looked at him with a smile on my face. Why, I would challenge you to a duel. Come to think of it, would you duel me? Ogre laughed as he finished his drink and looked for some reason genuinely happy with what I said. Sure, I would duel you, Naruto, but my duels are the kind where only one man makes it out of it alive. I just happen to know of a nice, spacious and secluded spot for the duel. We will not be interrupted. As I walked into the alley I knew we were indeed surrounded. I smiled as the man took out his sword. So are the people here spectators? Or do I need to think this is an ambush? The man laughed as I said that and began nodding his head. These guys are just here to watch. Wouldn't do much good to have a duel without people watching. This way at least there will be some benefit to one of us dying. They will learn a valuable lesson once you die. There was no protocol, no official start to the duel. Well, technically that was not true. The duel began when he first drew his sword. I waited for him to try and strike. I drew mine as soon as he swung his sword to strike me. My katana blocked his and even managed to strike a side of his thigh. Each time he tried to strike I blocked it, and he got another small cut. Why don't you quit wasting your time, attack me or die? I held my blade aiming it at him. Oh, I wouldn't worry about me dying, and as for me injuring you you just don't know it yet. My attacks were not as improvised as my opponent believed. Everything was planned and every small cut had a purpose. Little by little his movements became more sluggish and easier to deflect. It got to the point that he could no longer hold his weapon and decided to use his fists. That was my cue to end the fight once and for all. When he was within the striking range I cut off his hands, throat and finally his head came clean off hitting the floor. Spectators, my foot, they actually came out of their hiding places and tried to attack me. My shadow clones made short work of the lot and in the end, there were the dead bodies of dozens of mutilated guards and the dead body of Captain Ogre. His head impaled in the sword he loved to use. I went back to base and reported my mission to be complete. Ogre and a few of his guards were dead. Najenda looked at me and smiled. She stood up and sat on her desk while looking at me. I am aware of that. Leonie thought you needed backup and went after you shortly after you left. She tells me you were particularly brutal in the way you left his body, especially the way you left his head. Do you think that was necessary? I looked at her and I smiled. I actually accepted to fight an honor duel with him. Those men were supposedly only spectators since I killed the captain. Their little ambush failed and they attacked me. This means to me he never had any intention of fighting me honorably, and this was an ambush plain and simple. I looked at my sword and began checking it for any damage. As he did not honor our agreement, I felt as was only fitting that I show him the same amount of honor as he did me. I sheathed my sword and looked at her waiting for her reprimand. I guess that explains it, but you know he was very much liked by most of the guards under his command. This could actually cause these people to develop a vendetta against us. I looked at her and smiled and I really tried to be sincere. These people would already want us all dead since we basically are killing the people that are loyal to Prime Minister Honest. In their mind, we are evil people that are trying to destroy the empire. I wouldn't worry too much if I find any that use imperial arms. I will try to show them the error of their ways. I somehow feel it would be a wasted effort if the person is so blind they can't see how corrupt the empire has become. Najenda smiled and nodded her head as I finished saying that. You may be right, Naruto. I was once a loyal imperial guard myself. It took me seeing the evil that the corrupt people of the empire did for me to see the truth. That might actually help you show them the error of their ways. I got up and looked at her. Now if you will excuse me, boss, I got to go to take a bath and go to sleep. Chances are I will be doing recon in the capital tomorrow. I don't know why she found that funny, but she started laughing so hard she began touching her abdomen. And here I was thinking I would have to break the news to you easier. You are right, you are doing a reconnaissance mission tomorrow, and you are going with mine. It would be a good opportunity for both of you to work out your differences. She was right, I didn't like this one bit. She was the leader of the night raid, so I really had no choice, but I really didn't like this one bit. I decided to take my bath and try to relax a little, or at least I tried to do so. Once I was taking my bath and decided to sit down in the bath area and soak my troubles away, someone walked in as naked as the day she was born. I for once was glad it wasn't a Kame. She would have tried to kill me. The person that did walk in was also a problem, but for different reasons. Leonie just walked over to me and she was smiling like she found a treasure. Boy, am I glad I decided to take my bath now. You can help me wash my back, and I can certainly do the same for you. I also have a few questions for you, Naruto. Hope you don't mind answering them for me. I have been curious about your possible answers a lot lately. I told her to take care of the other parts one shouldn't wash and tell when I could wash her back. She did rather quickly, and I began washing her back. It sure didn't help that she was pressing her back into my hands. So mind telling me why you didn't take any other member as a backup for your mission to kill Ogre? I told her that it was no necessary, and I could very well take care of this on my own. So you can take care of killing someone that's strong. So Naruto, do you have a thing for women with big censored? I finished washing her back and turned away. I was not going to answer that question. It was simply too embarrassing to answer. That is when she grabbed me and began washing my back rather roughly. I guess she was not happy that I didn't answer that question. Why would it matter if I like women with big censored? She began pressing hers against my back and using them to wash my back. Damn these hormones. I looked down and saw something I wish I had better control over. Let's just say that part of me was reacting to her and she was smiling as she saw that. Well, you might not want to answer my question, but you have a very honest body, Naruto. What's the matter, Naruto? Are you a virgin? I took the bucket near me that had cold water and poured it down on myself. I went back to the bathing area and sat down on the stone floor that made up the giant bathtub. It was more like a miniature pool from the way I saw it. I am not a virgin. I am actually a widower. And yes, my wife did have a very nice pair of censored. She was shy and timid when I first met her, but she became rather assertive and direct during our marriage. I came here to take a bath and relax, and now I was basically forced to remember one of the saddest moments in my entire life. Hope that satisfies your curiosity, Leonie, at least I hope it does. Otherwise, you opening that old wound of mine and pouring salt into it would be a waste. She sat down right next to me. Sorry about that, it's just I don't know you very well, and since we are going to be working together, I figured that it might be a good idea to get to know you better. I am not a virgin either, but unlike you, it was not my choice. I was abused rather badly when I was a teen. I had not developed into the beauty you know now then. How could I if I suffer from constant malnutrition? The bastard has a thing for girls or even boys that look like little kids. The only way I could escape that fate was for him to lose interest in me, so I did everything I could to work out, steal money or food to keep well fed. Sure enough, as my figure began to show that I would be the bombshell you know now, he threw me into the streets wearing the old rags he found me in. I became a member of Night Raid after I stole the Imperial Arm and killed that bastard with my own hands. Now that I think of it, I think he was the brother of Prime Minister Honest, and if he is anything like he was, I sure pity the poor Emperor. I got up and began to dry myself. I don't pity the man who made the dream my friend and I made real into the corrupt nightmare that it is today. I hate him, and mark my words, he will die. She began to dry herself and I could tell she was looking at me. Hate is an awful thing to base your life on, Naruto. It will devour you from inside and leave you a husk of what you could have been. I rather say we punish them for the evil they do to the innocent people of the Empire. So let me get this straight. I have to look for information and possibly Imperial soldiers in the possession of Imperial arms with mine. We are supposedly perfect because no one knows either one of us is a member of Night Raid. That part makes sense. I looked at them and began shaking my head. So I came on time, but the other person that is supposedly going on the same mission is not here. I am guessing punctuality is not a big thing with mine, is it? I would never have believed it was possible. If that girl had long silver hair, and it was made to stand straight up, I would even imagine her saying how she got lost on the road of life. It is amazing that after all this time I seem to remember Kakashi. So boss, does this mean I will be doing this mission solo? I don't mind, but it is your decision. Najenda smiled at me in such a way that if I wasn't what I was I would be quite worried. Actually, Naruto, I need you to go and wake her up. As much as I would love to allow you to go alone on this mission, it simply is out of the question. Should you meet an Imperial guard with an Imperial arms, it would be impossible for you to defeat that guard since you don't have an Imperial arm yourself. I was almost tempted to remind her that when two people who have Imperial arms fight each other, one of them is guaranteed to die. These weapons may be absolutely useful, deadly, and in some cases absolute lifesavers, but many people tend to forget that these weapons actually use the body parts of some of the world's deadliest beasts. I was simply not in the mood to spend hour after hour lecturing her about things she should already know. Honestly, sometimes I think this lady forgets who is the kid and who is the elder in this particular situation. I walked over to Mine's room and I could have sent a shadow clone to wake her up. I could have just gone around and entered through her bedroom window, but I wanted this recon mission over and done with as soon as possible. I began to slam my fist against her door. Mine, we got a mission. If you aren't up and dressed in less than 10 minutes, I am going to do this mission alone, and you can explain to the boss why you weren't there. I should also say that we are supposed to pretend we are a couple out buying things we need as a pair of newlyweds. Which means we will be buying a lot of things that most guys find utterly embarrassing. I heard someone jump from her bed and began to sound like a tornado had gone off in her room. She came out wearing the same pink dress she always seems to wear. Alright, then let's go and buy some things. I am giddy to find out what you might consider embarrassing. I have lived through thousands of years, fought in wars that were horrific, and seen the death of thousands of people in a single day. Nothing, and I mean nothing, that I ever saw was as horrible as watching mine eat out in public. If someone told me that one of her parents had been an animal, my vote would be on a pig. Kakashi used to complain about my table manners, but this girl had me beat. She didn't use her utensils, she did not drink her liquids, she stuffed them into her face, chewed them like modesty had gone out of style, and drank her liquids like she had been lost in the desert for a year. If this was her attempt to make me feel embarrassed, I would say her attempt had been an absolute success. She also managed to kill my appetite. I looked at the waiter, and he looked at her. He ran and brought me a milky drink and told me to help settle my stomach. I promptly thanked him as I continued to watch her pack away food in a way not even Choji could. How in the world did she eat like that and still look so thin? I mean, where in the world was she packing away all that? She finally finished eating, and when I asked for the bill, the cook came out and flat out told me it was in the house, as long as I took her away from the restaurant as quickly as possible. People seeing her eat was ruining their reputation. She decided to go into a rather open lingerie shop. I watched her look at some silky garments and I was sorely tempted to remind her she simply didn't have the figure to wear those kinds of clothes. I just kept calm and quiet as I heard several of the other customers laugh their heads off. My guess is that they were laughing at me. I used to complain that my late wife had a temperament that could make a saint use foul language that would make a veteran sailor blush. Only 3 hours later and I realized that in reality, compared to mine, my late wife was an absolute angel. She ended up buying a pink dress, with matching pink lacy lingerie to match, and I had to be the one to pay for it. 3 hours of walking around the capital, 3 hours of seeing places I never expected to find in the capital, and 3 hours of enduring her constant teasing and mocking. It was after all that she finally decided to call it quits, since we had found not one Imperial arm-wielding guard. Naruto, you were not embarrassed to see so many people wearing those clothes. You never complained about how I ate my food, or how I behaved in public. What gives? Most would have been yelling at me to behave or be embarrassed, but nothing I did face you in the least. I looked at her as I was drinking a sip of my tea. Mine, I might look young. Some people may confuse me for being inexperienced, and some of not looking like I should be able to describe the clothes they had in that shop, much alone see people wearing those type of undergarments. I took another sip of my tea and looked at her, but I am older than I look, and unlike you, I've been married a few times. I've seen clothes that make the ones in that shop look chaste. I have lived through things most people would never believe, and so take it from me, you are at least 1,000 years too young to be able to get under my skin. This entire time has been an absolute waste of time, money and effort. So why don't you go home and put away all these things you bought? I am going to stick around here and see if I can succeed where together we failed. She got up and slapped me across the face. She must be pretending she is the disapproving wife now. She left with a huff and looked like to every guy around me that I was pretty much destined to get regular doses of cold shoulder and sleeping on the living room couch. I saw something that caught my attention and I decided to walk towards where that something was headed. It looked like a young girl walking her dog, except thanks my eyes, I could tell that the dog and the girl were anything but normal. I walked over to them and smiled as I looked at the puppy. Nice puppy you got there. You seem to be an Imperial Guard, am I right? She looked at me and smiled, saluted me and looked at me with a great deal of pride clearly visible in her eyes. I am Imperial Guard Seryu Ubiquitous, and this little guy is my Imperial Arms. I like to call him Koros. Now mind telling me, what are you doing in the capital? And what is your name? I looked at her Imperial Arms and I could see who it really was. I had been the one to capture the part that this weapon was made from. I am Naruto Uzumaki, and I have been away from the capital for a very long time. I have been hearing that the night raid have been going around the capital. So tell me, Seryu, what do you know of the night raid? She looked at me like I had lost my mind. I know quite a few things about it actually. They are a bunch of terrorists that have been murdering people in official positions or support the Empire. I believe they are the ones responsible for the murder of my esteemed mentor and commanding officer. He was the man I respected the most. His name was Ogre. I think you might have heard of him. I looked at her and with my eyes, I could see some horrible things had been done to this young woman. Her body had dozens of weapon systems replace several major organs and body parts. I could see that something must have happened to her to push her over the edge of sanity. If she was ever going to be able to see the truth, I might need to do something about her insanity first. It is sad to hear that you mention this man, but you didn't mention your father. Mind telling me about him while we walk together? There are a few people I would like you two to meet. Kurosboss will make sure we are not interrupted in your guided tour of the capital. She smiled and told me it would be a pleasure to give me that guided tour. As we walked towards the graveyard, she began telling me about her father, how he was killed by bandits while on duty, and that is why she hates night raids, since they were no better than the people that killed her father. See, that is the reason why I became an Imperial Guard, to begin with, to make criminals suffer as they have made the innocent suffer. I am the hand of justice that will not stop until all those that prey on innocent people meet their end. A little psychotic, but I guess after everything she has gone through it would be strange if she wasn't the way she was. I stopped at a few places from a row of over 24 graves. Do you know what these graves have in common, Seryu? She began to look at each name and she closed her eyes for a second. She kept muttering something while she had her eyes closed. All these people were accused of being traitors to the Empire and executed for their crimes. Why do you need to ask about the graves of traitors, Naruto? I placed my hand on her imperial arms and just as my hand touched it I said something that she did not expect. Kurobo's official restraint active. Sleep till I release the restraint. Her weapon fell into a fetal position and closed his eyes. Actually, Seryu, these people were falsely accused of treason. They were suffering under the extortion racket of a very corrupt oil trader. Your mentor Ogre actually framed them to get rid of them as a favor to the oil trader, and because this trader gave him quite a bit of a bribe each month. She looked at me with a look of complete rage. You lie. Captain Ogre would never do something like that. I couldn't help but to feel pity for this young woman. All the horrors she must have endured to earn the respect of Ogre. Since I drank his blood I could see the many horrible things Ogre put her through. Actually, I am telling you the truth. I will tell you another. What happens when a superior officer dies without naming a successor? You probably don't know this either. Well, if that happens, his direct subordinate gets promoted to the position of the dead superior. She looked at me as if it was impossible that I blocked her attack so easily. Your father was the direct superior to Lieutenant Ogre. In case I need to spell it out for you, Ogre was not going to be named a successor or even get promoted. He used cheap muscle enhancements from the experimental lab. Your father did not approve of using such untested methods. He valued the lives of his men far too much. One night when the two were off doing a patrol outside the capital, Ogre and your father fought off against several dozen bandits. The bandits were dealt with, but just as your father was turning his back to check if the bandits had any more people hiding nearby, Ogre stabbed him in the back. The mentor that you respected so much and valued his advice killed your father. She screamed at me that I shouldn't even know that since I told her I had been away from the capital for too long. She was looking frantic as she appeared to me, trying to deny the fact that Ogre murdered her father. I am a vampire, Seryu. I have the unique ability to see the memories of the people whose blood I drink. In case I need to explain, first, let me ask you, do you know what secret section 6 that the first Prime Minister founded is? She told me since it was a secret section no one but the Prime Minister would know. I knew that they had changed a few facts in their history. I think Hope is actually changing many things in the official documents to suit his needs. Secret Section 6 is the creation of a secret unit of assassins. Their main purpose is to eliminate all traitors to the Empire, be they officials or civilians. This group is tasked with the traitors' deaths as a means to protect the Empire and its citizens. You were wrong about one thing that you told me today, Seryu. The Night Raid is not a group of traitors or even terrorists. The name of the group under Secret Section 6 is the Night Raid. I know all these things because I am the first Prime Minister of the Empire, and I am also the man who killed Ogre in an honor duel. We both agreed to fight. She looked at me, and that is when her weapons began to fire against me. First her hand, then her elbow, and she even fired rifle rounds at great speed from her legs. I blocked everything she fired and evaded that which was too close for comfort. Koros activate. We are in front of one of those miserable traitors. We get to avenge Ogre and let this criminal face true justice. Koro, why won't you listen? I looked at her and smiled. Kurobos is the name of the creature your little weapon was made from. I should know I was the one to defeat and capture him. Since I was involved with the creation of the Imperial Arms, I also know the right commands to disable, destroy, and even turn them against their bonded partners. I looked at her and again I could not help but to feel pity for her. Seryu honor duels are duels to the death that both parties agree to participate, and they are 100% legal. I have committed no crime, and I have told you no lies. Come with me to the Imperial Library and I will show you a copy of the document dealing with the foundation of Secret Section 6. She finally calmed down and she broke down in tears. I released her friend and in truth, I may have captured him but he was never my enemy, to begin with. After all, Kurobos was the descendant of one of my dearest and most loyal friends. We walked towards the library and she kept looking at me. Once we made it inside, I took a key from one of my pockets and opened the secret door to the file repository. The second the door opened I could tell she knew I was not lying anymore. It was plain to see on her face. I handed her the copy of the document and as she finished reading it she broke down in tears as soon as she handed me back the document and I placed it back in the appropriate bookshelf. Prime Minister Naruto. What does this mean? Why is the Section 6 active? I looked at her and smiled while my eyes were active. She found my gaze to be too scary to look at, so she looked down to her feet. Seryu, it means that the Empire is in danger. Traitors are doing things that undermine the sanctity of the Empire and the safety of the citizens of the Empire. Imperial Guard Seryu Ubiquitous, you said that you wanted to be an instrument of justice, or so I understood you to say as such. I am here asking you, how sincere are you in that desire? Will you join the section and become a true ally of justice, or will you continue to aid the traitors of the Empire? She looked at me and smiled. Maybe her first real smile in a long time by the looks of it. I would be honored to join Prime Minister Naruto Uzumaki, but chances are the others in the section would not be as welcoming as you are. I will remain in my post undercover if you can meet me in the capital. I will be able to hand you information on any movement the traitors are plotting against the secret Section 6. I didn't like that one bit. I knew that others would not be as welcoming, but I don't like the idea of her putting her life at risk needlessly. I can obtain that information by drinking the blood of the traitors I kill. There is no need to risk your life like that. I looked at her. As for the night raid not trusting you, they should know full well I don't let those that truly betray the Empire or me live. The fact that I am offering you this opportunity is to better serve the Empire and ensure those traitors pay for their evil deeds. Come with me and I will introduce you to what from now on will be your true family. There is no need to be alone anymore out in the dark. She began to cry and ran towards me. She hugged me and kept sobbing. Thank you, sir. I will not let you down. As soon as we arrived at the headquarters, I led her to meet the leader of the night raid. She became very surprised to see the leader. It seems she knew quite a bit about her. So Naruto, mind telling me, why did you bring this Imperial Guard here? You do realize that the current Prime Minister labeled all of us traitors, and this person could use this opportunity to kill us, don't you? I smiled at her and the others. I don't think Seryu would do something like that. Come on, there is no need to be shy. Introduce yourself and tell them why you are here. She walked into the middle of the room and looked at me with a smile. I shall do as you said, sir. My name is Seryu Ubiquitous. I have been told the truth about the night raid by Prime Minister Naruto Uzumaki, and I have come to join Secret Section 6 to be a true ally of justice and make the traitors of the Empire face justice. Najenda was smiling at me from her seat and she walked over to Seryu. You got her to see the truth of our group, it seems, and it also seems she needed to know the real duty of the night raid. You even had to disclose your identity as the first Prime Minister. I know you wouldn't have told her all that unless you felt you could trust her, Naruto. Very well, you will join the night raid. As for our official title, you must never speak the name of the secret section again. It is supposed to be kept as the name implies a secret. Since you recruited her, Naruto, I am placing her under your direct command. I trust that you know what that means? Seryu walked towards me. She actually looked happy when she heard she would be under my command, but confused about the last thing she heard. Sir, what did she mean by understanding what it means to be under your command? I placed my hand on her shoulder and smiled. It means that you are my responsibility, and if you ever betray this group by killing one of its members, I shall be forced to hunt you down and kill you myself, and soon after that I will be executed as well. This unit does not forgive traitors. For betraying this unit, it is to betray the Imperial Guardians. She looked at me with an obvious look of concern, but soon that concern was replaced with a smile I once used to wear when I was a kid. You don't need to worry about that at all, sir. I will do my very best to make you proud of me. Leonie smiled at me and began to walk towards me. She stopped when she was standing right beside me. One of these days, Naruto, you have to teach me how do you get her to be so utterly loyal to you. I swear, had this been in a different setting, it almost sounded like she was declaring her feelings for you. Seryu didn't waste any time to walk right in front of her and smile. Of course I care about Naruto. After all, he told me everyone in this unit is a family. Why wouldn't I care about what happens to him or any of you? Isn't that what loving and caring siblings should do? Come on, big sister. Show me to the kitchen. I need to help get our dinner started. She grabbed Leonie and took off. It seems this caused Leonie to be quite surprised. A few moments later I heard Leonie scream that the kitchen was in the opposite direction they were headed. Najenda was the only person left in the room with me. Honestly, Naruto, you told her we were a family. I guess if she does think of us as a family, that would make it harder for her to ever betray us. Well, all things considered, I think this was quite the success. I turned around and began to walk towards the door. That is when I turned around and caught a piece of paper. However, your work is not done yet. We have heard that the former head executioner of Prime Minister Honest is going around town causing quite the death toll on the citizens. I looked at the piece of paper and saw a name. I gather this Zanku is causing trouble with one of the Imperial arms. Very well, I shall leave at once. I know the spectator better than anyone. After all, the thing that was made using something of mine. I pointed at my own eye. It took quite a bit for me to relinquish one of my own eyes, and it was rather painful for me to regenerate it, but my friend did ask. How could I refuse my good friend and by then brother-in-law? I began to walk outside, and that is when I heard Najenda ask a question that caught me by surprise, so much so that I stopped where I stood for a second. Do you think you will ever find someone to feel that kind of love again, Naruto? Will you ever marry and find a cure for your own sadness? I turned around and smiled at her, very much like the smile Seryu just showed me. I don't know, Najenda. Maybe someday I will fall in love with someone like I did with my long-dead wife. Or maybe it's just that I haven't found her yet, the reincarnation of my long-lost love. If I find her, I will be sure to introduce her to you. She just looked at me and smiled. The real question is, can you die? I looked at her and told her that even death could die. Why would I be any different? I could be killed, that is true, but it simply wouldn't be that easy to do. I took off running towards the city when I felt an energy wrap around me and pretty much teleport me to the city. Guess someone wanted to give me a helping hand, it seems. I began to walk along the places Zanku killed people. I even changed into a more defenseless form. I kept walking till I was just plain tired of waiting. How long are you going to keep me waiting for, Zanku? I know you are there, as easily as you can see me. The large man jumped down from a one-story home and looked at me with a smile. You looked like you were having such a fun time walking around my old hunting grounds that I simply didn't want to interrupt. Mind telling me why my spectator is not able to let me read your thoughts? I looked at him, because you are using something that came from me. The ability to read thoughts can be quite the pain if you don't know how to block them. I imagine you must be constantly bombarded by the thoughts of everyone in the capital, or worse, the entire empire. I also imagine it can be quite the headache. He laughed and continued to laugh till tears came down his face. You have no idea how painful. I've been looking for a long time for someone that understands. Someone who is strong enough to give me the fight I need, and maybe strong enough to put me out of my misery. I used a single hand sign and the jutsu was off. I was right back in my real form. Then you don't need to hunt other people, Zanku. I will be more than enough to, as you asked, put you out of your misery. So how about crazy, let's dance? He had a clever-like weapon in his hand, and I had a ninjutsu and a kunai. I know it might seem as a disadvantage against poor crazy Zanku, but this is combat and not an actual dance at a local club. Actually, I think Prime Minister Honest actually outlawed all form of music since he can't sing at all. I mean, most people can at least try to sing in the shower, but not the cannibal that is currently Prime Minister of the most massive empire in recorded human history, maybe because he keeps editing that history to suit his own ego or his own needs. After a few slashes, I quickly learned that Zanku actually had no actual fighting style worth mentioning. He simply slashed at people at random, or maybe it was because he couldn't tell what I was going to do before I do it. I just pray that he isn't using that clear vision ability, cause I don't actually have any underwear on at the moment. I just kept evading his attacks, and as the fight went on he became more and more enraged. Finally, after an hour or two, he just stopped. Why don't you stop moving around and fight me like a man? All you've been doing this whole time is dodging and evading my attacks. Fight me already. I for one didn't think my tactics were actually that bad, to begin with. I was indeed fighting him, and it seems, at least from my perspective, to be actually working. I am not dumb enough to attack him head on, and I am not suicidal enough to make a move that is so obvious anyone could tell what I was going to do, like rush him with my sword in hand screaming like a maniac. My tactics were indeed to make him become angry enough to throw rational decision out the window and to tire him out enough that with each rash decision he becomes even more tired. Let's face it, had I really wanted to end this fight quickly, I could make 5 shadow clones, and if we each hit him with a large Rasengan, which I know I and my clones could do, this fight wouldn't last a minute. Instead, I am letting him fight for his life, something he never even let his own victims do. He thinks I am actually insulting him, but in reality, I think I am being way nicer than he actually deserves. Alright, you want me to fight you head on. Alright, I was being nice to you, but you are too dumb to see that. I was letting you have a chance to save your own neck, but again you are ungrateful and didn't even notice. Fine. I am done being nice to you, Zanku. Hope you finish writing your will, cause I am ending this in the next 30 seconds. He looked at me, veins clearly visible on his face. You and what army? I made a hand sign and 10 shadow clones appeared around us from different clouds of gray smoke. Why this one? Say good night, Zanku. They all rushed him, and in a matter of a second, I swear I heard the man say, Mama, when the clones actually they all plunged their ninjutsus into him. I walked over the man, and to his credit, he was still briefly alive. The voices are gone. It's so quiet, for the first time in so long, it's so quiet. I think I will be able to sleep. Good night and thank you. As he closed his eyes, I couldn't help but tell him sweet dreams. I took the spectator off him and placed it in one of my scrolls. I took off running back, but I only made it outside the city before being teleported back to the headquarters. I walked into Nagenda's office, which apparently is also her bedroom, and placed the spectator on her desk. Mission accomplished. Now if there isn't anything else, I would really like it if I can at least take a brief nap. I am not hungry. That Zanku had quite a bit of blood for me to drink. She looked at me as she was sitting on what I think is her bed and smiled at me. Did you learn anything important from Zanku? I looked at her and told her that I did. I learned that Zanku actually became executioner because of a lie told to him by Honest, and he could not take off the spectator and caused him nothing but sheer torment. I told her hearing the minds of so many people all the time was what drove him into becoming the psychopath that I met. Seeing that the Imperial weapon was recovered and that she actually didn't give me a new target, I decided to go back to my room and sleep for the rest of the night. I had to get up bright and early to train the new member of Night Raid after all. As soon as I closed my eyes, I saw the face of a particularly beautiful woman. Her hair was as blue as the clear ocean, so where those deep blue-colored eyes almost made me think of pure ice. Her figure was something I only saw a couple of times in my entire life. She was strong, beautiful, confident, and from the way her hand felt on my face, she had no rings on her hand, which meant that she was single. I saw her go into battle, and that what really impressed me. Till now I knew of only one person who controlled ice to the degree I saw. That person had been Haku. I still regret having to see that young man throw away his life like that, but to him, Zabuza was his everything. I could never forget Haku no matter how many years I live, for he was the one who taught me how to be able to use my full strength and become stronger. He told me that a person needs someone or somethings that he or she holds precious, and was willing to defend it with everything that person had. Only then could a person truly use all their strength. I didn't get the feeling that she held anything precious at all. This blue-haired beauty, if anything, seems like she was bored with the people she was fighting. The frozen corpses of her enemy were littering the battlefield. She looked to me as bored as Sakura once looked when we were sent to pull the weeds out of the garden of an old lady in our village. If Sakura had been as strong as this woman had been, I don't know, maybe her marriage to Sasuke would have lasted a lot longer than it did. She finally got her wish and she married the man who she wanted to marry ever since her academy days. Too bad the marriage only produced one daughter and they were divorced by the time their daughter turned 3 years old. I can't blame Sasuke. He was the last of the Uchiha within our village, and he wanted to be able to replenish the numbers of his clan. All would have been fine if Sakura dedicated as much time to training as she did on her makeup. To her, being the pretty wife of Sasuke was the most important challenge. To Sasuke, having a strong and skilled wife was more important. He eventually did rebuild his clan, but no one was more shocked than I was when I learned that he actually managed it with the least likely woman. He married the weapons maniac of my village, a woman that I swear loved weapons more than anything she owned. Then again, 1010 was really pretty in her wedding day. As I woke up the next day, I touched my face and I saw the stains of tears on my pillow. I achieved immortality. I could be called the deity of all my kind, yet remembering their faces and how they lived always makes me cry. Some immortal I am, that all it takes to reduce me to a crybaby is for me to remember all the precious people I lost so long ago. I got dressed and I looked out the window. Well, no time to get sentimental. I got a new recruit to train, and no matter how many times I try to forget her, I just can't seem to forget the face of that blue-haired beauty from my dream. Who is she? After having my morning coffee, I was thinking of a way to train my new subordinate so that she would be ready to help in taking down the people that were in league with Honest, and he walked towards the training area. He initially planned to train her like any other genin, so the first he needed to do is to do the introduction. As she saw me walk toward her, I told her that we need to talk, and told her that an introduction must happen as my new student. As she looked at me, I decided to do something that my own teacher Kakashi would do, and after I learned that she honestly wanted to be an agent of justice, and make sure citizens could live their lives in safety. The training was something I had done with my kids, but as she trained I was hit by the painful memories of seeing my kids train and hoped that she will not end up as they did. I was certain that I would try to make sure to do a better job of training her so that I would not fail her like I failed my kids. As Kuro began to sense something wrong with me because he was staring at me until in the middle of the training Seryu asked me to do something I was not expecting at all. She asked me to teach her some hand-to-hand combat techniques, but seeing how this will get me sweaty, I took off my top clothes, to which upon seeing my naked chest she was impressed with my muscle definition. But due in large part to the many weapons she had in her body fighting her hand-to-hand, for some strange reason my current condition made it very hard for me to fight her, so I had to use chakra to enhance my senses and my body, to which she gasped when I did that. Sir, I see what Kuro was saying before. And now that I saw you fight using your own techniques, I see it too. There is something that has been sort of tattooed to your forehead and over where your heart should be. Strange things as it only appears when you are fighting, which I find rather odd. That is when I decided to ask her if I could drink some of her blood, and was shocked at what I saw. The seals were placed a long time ago, and these seals seem to not only affect my mind, memories, and body but somehow weakening me to the point that it is like I was right back at the time after finishing my training with the pervy sage. I made 3 shadow clones to try and remove the seals, but even if they manage to remove them, the damage already done to my mind and body will take some time to recover, and my mind has to go through all my memories to either correct memories or outright eliminate false implanted ones. Whoever did this was malicious, meticulous, and with the clear intent of getting me killed, but at that moment I was hit with a memory of something that I couldn't remember at all. My kids, they are all part vampiric like I am, so if I can easily resurrect them, maybe this will give me a chance to know why did they fall for such an obvious family of psychopaths. It was then that I, after explaining what Seryu needed to do next, took my chance to access a more private location and immediately unsealed the ashes of my 3 kids from the scroll. Using a small blade I cut my hand and began to drop some of my blood on each one of the 3 piles of ashes, and just like I could now remember, the ashes slowly began to change till all 3 of my kids were alive, except Ieyasu for some strange reason was now a girl. Upon seeing me they all rushed towards me and hugged me while crying, which was not the best thing to do considering that I was being hugged by my 3 very naked kids. I was so glad I picked a room where no one could see any of it, or else I wouldn't hear the end of it. As soon as they calmed down I threw at them 3 scrolls containing some spare clothes and told them to get dressed since there is some things I need to ask them. That is when 2 of my own kids blushed and told me to turn away. Why is my son, who is now my daughter, acting like a shy maiden all of a sudden? The 3 of them did not take long to put on the spare clothes, except that 2 of them said they felt uncomfortable wearing the clothes. Since they are my spare clothes, it would be understandable since I have my 3 kids back. Having the chance to buy them some clothes, or hell, I could have my shadow clones make them some clothes, wouldn't be a problem. So mind telling me exactly what went wrong with you 3? I taught you to be ninjas, to look beneath the underneath, not to be caught by such obvious tactics, so how did you end up getting murdered by such an obvious pack of psychopaths? Tatsumi was the first to answer. Dad, the thing is, when we left the village everything was fine. It was after we met this fat guy who oddly smelled of snakes that things went wrong in horrible ways. First, he attacked us with this strange vapor that after that we don't know what went wrong after that. When we reached the capital it wasn't exactly what we were expecting, but we were taken in by the family you mentioned, but at the time they were not doing that to everyone. In fact, they did poison and kill people, but only people they considered harmful to society. Tatsumi looked a little depressed as he continued talking. In fact, I got pretty damn close to the daughter and mother. In fact, I marked them as my mates, I bite them, drank from them, and they did the same with me as per tradition. But one night suddenly my then brother got the strange odor of snakes being around, and everything went to hell after that night. Sayo looked at me. After that night they were, like you said, a family of psychopaths, but even if we tried to escape we don't know how to fight. We are just plain ordinary country folk. So what do you mean you trained us to be a ninja? We are more liable to hurt ourselves than anyone else fighting with a kitchen knife. I didn't want to listen to what I heard from her at all. I happen to know Sayo is an expert at close quarter combat, and an excellent archer. There is no way she or her siblings couldn't take down the entire family in the guards by themselves. Something was not making sense until I got more of my memories and realized the reason. I called Seryu to the room and asked her if she could see anything as she saw me present on the 3 people with me, and much to my shock she immediately told me they have the same tattoos exactly in the same places as they had been present on me. So that means that at one point a large obese man who smelled of snakes somehow knocked out my kids, and while knocked out this person placed the very same seals on them, and someone had done it to me, and if they managed to do that to me that person was no slouch when it came to combat. Alright Seryu, I guess that you completed today's training. I will give you some money. Please take these 3 people so they can buy clothes and other essentials, and before you ask, yes, I will provide you with the money, and these 3 are my children, so please try to be nice to each other, since they will be working with us to eliminate the traitors that pollute and endanger the empire. As I walked over to Tatsumi I placed my hands on the places the seals were and broke them. Sayo was next, but I was still getting used to the idea of seeing my son Ieyasu as a girl. It was weird, but considering how messed up my memories and mind is at the moment I am not exactly one to say that they are weirder than I am. As Seryu left with Tatsumi, Sayo, and Ieyasu I decided to talk with Najenda to try and avoid any misunderstandings. As I walked towards the office I knocked on her door waiting for her to tell me if I could enter, which she did, apparently still doing paperwork. She smiled and asked if Seryu's initial training was going well. I couldn't hide this from her if I wanted her and the others to trust me and my kids, so I decided to be completely honest. During training, Seryu, using the parts that they replaced her eyes with, saw something, and her imperial arms Kuro told her that I had a scent of a snake on me, as I took off my top clothing so she could tell me if she saw anything stand out. She mentioned that Bullet actually saw that, and his only comment was wolf whistles and calling Naruto a beefcake. I told her that aside from getting hit on by a guy, there were many other more important things to talk about. These tattoos were not as benign as you might think. They literally were weakening me, messing with my mind, and may have caused me to forget important parts of my life or implanted fake memories in my mind. To make matters worse, as soon as I removed these seals, I began to regain my memories, but my body will take some time to recover. So I wanted to tell you that I will be a lot better to help in the mission of Night Raid given some time to recover from the harm those seals caused, and to make matters even weirder for you. You remember my 3 kids? Well, I found they are just like me, and I managed to somehow resurrect them from the dead, using my blood on their ashes. Najenda was shocked when she heard that last part. Where are they? What do you mean they came back to life? I am honestly more worried than before. Does this mean your reason to help Night Raid went up in smoke? Where are these kids of yours? I told her to relax. She is liable to break something if she keeps grabbing her chair like that. As for my kids, they went with Seryu to the nearest town so that my 2 daughters and son can buy some clothes and some essentials. Nothing to worry about. They were also had the same seals that Seryu discovered on me, so trust me, since they didn't have them for that long, they should be almost back to normal. As for safety, they are ninjas. There is very little that can be a threat to a vampire ninja after all. Najenda looked at me and smiled. While I am happy to hear that you managed to recover some of your memories and you are getting better, I am happier to hear that you regained your precious kids. But why tell me? What? You plan for them to join Night Raid? I told her indeed I do, and I was planning to ask her to introduce them to the other members during dinner. I will continue to work with Seryu as part of my little unit, but now I simply have 3 more members to it. After you see how we deal with targets, scouting, and even infiltration missions, you will be very happy that my kids are working with Night Raid. Then again, this could also be my parental pride showing. You will have to wait and see. The time finally came and Tatsumi looked like he had gone through the single most embarrassing day of his entire life. Poor kid. If only I could tell him that there are far worse things than to have to give girls his opinion on clothing and underwear selection. How the hell did I know this? Simple. I sent a shadow clone to keep an eye on them. Some people would say that this was a test to see if I could trust Seryu, but in reality, it was something I needed to do till the time I know my kids are perfectly back to normal after the effects of those accursed seals. I lost my kids once. I was not about to let that happen again under my watch. Whoever did this knew seals as good as my godfather, and the only other person I know would know seals as well as either Tsunade or Orochimaru, since he did create those blasted cursed seals. This however confused me somewhat. Why would Orochimaru, who later became an ally of our village, once again do this? Najenda quickly pretended to clear her throat and stood from her seat. It was easy to see she was going to say something important before all present could eat dinner. As you might have noticed, we have 4 extra people here with us, one of which is a former Imperial Guard, but relax, none of these people are a threat to us or our goal. The former guard is the new apprentice of Naruto Uzumaki, and the 3 other people through some strange events. These 3 are the kids of Naruto that got killed by that family that Naruto killed before we could. The right on my right is Seryu Ubiquitous, and sitting near Naruto are his daughters, Sayo, and Ieyasu, and in front of him is his son Tatsumi. Please make them feel welcomed as new members of Night Raid. She looked at me and smiled, and since this is such a joyous event, we have prepared a celebratory dinner as means to welcome our new 4 members and to celebrate the fact that Naruto has regained 3 of his precious people. The minute Najenda said that, I could swear I could hear Tatsumi laughing his ass off. Leone for some strange reason was looking at Tatsumi like he was made out of catnip. Honestly, I would need horses and ropes to pull those 2 apart, and it didn't help that she was sitting right next to him. Why were my daughters practically glaring daggers at Leone was something that was not very clear to me. Either way, it seems Leone is trying to make claim my son as her mate. I swear she reminds me so much of the Inuzuka it is not even funny. As I began to eat my food, Bullet asked me how in the world did they even manage to return from the dead. I began to laugh and told him that it seems my kids had more of me in them than I believed. They are a part vampire, and doing a very specific ritual will always resurrect one of our kind even if the person in question is nothing more than a pile of ashes. I simply forgot about that possibility until recently. I even mentioned that the only reason I remembered at all was thanks to the discussion we had about my vampiric nature that I had with Seryu. Seryu said that she often found mythology and fantasy books to be her favorite, so of course, if she was to ever meet an actual vampire, she would of course want to get to learn as much as she could about his species. Mine, however, didn't find it funny and simply said it had to be a lie for me to be unable to remember something that important. It is clear that Seryu was merely covering for me. I looked at her and could not help but scowl. When over 9,000 years old you reach, your memory shall not be as good as mine. Tatsumi could not help but laugh as I said it, and I couldn't get angry at him because the only reason I said it as a joke was to ease the tension of what mine said. He decided to try and do the same and pointed at her and simply said, mine she is, yours she is not, but mine she is. This made Leonie start getting a little angry at mine, and mine wondering why the hell a guy that she never met before decide to declare something so personal to a person he never met before. In case of my perspective, it seems that I was not the only person who was reincarnated into this world, and in one version of this world Tatsumi indeed married and had a child with mine. This was proven to me by the fact that we both pulled inspiration from a story about a galaxy far away that no one in the Empire or the entire world would or could ever know. Lubbock was looking at me in a rather strange way, not like Bullet but still was pretty weird. Well, now that the drama is over, mind telling me what the hell is wrong with Leonie, who was after all in my opinion going after Naruto, but the minute Tatsumi appears she redirected her amorous intentions away from him and redirect them towards what seems to be the only son of Naruto. Can someone please explain to me how the hell did this happen? Cause it makes no sense to me at all. I could evade this by telling Lubbock that women's feelings can change faster than the seasons. I could say romance is fickle and that Leonie simply chose to focus her attention on a mate that was younger, but honestly after everything I've been through today I don't have the patience or intent of being that merciful. It seems Leonie was attracted to me due to my scent, but in reality, she was attracted to the scent that she smelled from the scroll that contained the remains of my son, so in truth she was attracted to him rather than me. I looked at Lubbock and tried to remain as calm as possible when he is glaring at me. She is following her feline instincts, in other words, she chose him to be her mate and not me, and since Leonie had imperial arms that basically give her attributes of a lioness, well, let's just say that him ending with a pride of his own is not out of the question. I simply tried to enjoy the meal my clones spent some time preparing and looked at them. Look, Tatsumi may be many things, heartless is not one of them, making me worry to the point that my hair will turn white or fall out maybe. But if you ask anyone who has kids, that is rather common for a parent. In what it is to be in a married relationship, more so than my 3 kids, I know that the mere fact that men courting and gaining the affections of a lady is a mere illusion if not an outright trap. Guys don't make the choice, the ladies do. The sooner someone wakens to the fact, the better things will be for that person. Najenda accused me of speaking like a whipped husband, to which I had to admit that during my decades of being married I followed the simple philosophy of as long as the wife is happy, the home is going to be happy, and so I did everything I could to make sure she was happy, till she died of old age. I had a couple of lovers and a few ladies who, shall we say, I enjoyed a very open relationship with, so I do have experience in the turbulence and troubles of a relationship that has multiple women, and there are many pitfalls and troubles, but if a person can manage it is quite a life. Little did I know that many of my memories had been changed beyond even what I had expected. I was clueless that one of my former lovers who I once intended to marry was still very much alive. Little did I know that she would eventually have a daughter, that she was currently one of the generals of the Imperial Army. I only found this out since Najenda, trying to switch topics, mentioned something about the fighting up north apparently ending soon and that Night Raid should be careful since General Esdeath could come back to the capital at some point in the near future. As we were having dinner a few miles outside the capital, it seems someone was very angry and she was venting said anger on some particularly badly beaten danger beasts. The poor things looked like they were beaten and then drowned, only to have their bodies break apart as the water that drowns them froze inside their bodies. It was hardly what one would expect from someone like her. She was a very beautiful lady, lovely figure, and her long blue hair was done in a ponytail that could be seen that she was a warrior if anything else. This woman was clearly a person on a mission or even a hunt, but no danger beasts or people would dare to approach. She was just that angry. She finally made it to the place that she wanted. Knowing the preferences of the person she was looking for, she knew that he would not want to draw undue attention, so he liked to go to the lowest bar or the cheapest restaurant. People don't tend to care who go there, even less what they do. The fact is that going to high prices places would only draw attention that Naruto didn't need. He lived in the shadows for longer than most people could imagine. As such, she understood this better than anyone. This is her former lover, after all, the man who promised that one day would marry her, but that day didn't come, making her feel like she was disregarded or that he broke his promise. As she walked into the inn wearing her usual leather armor and a cloak to hide her features, she went to talk to the bartender. Her barkeep, give me a mug of whatever you would call your best, and if you answer one of my questions correctly I might give you some money. The bartender was if anything greedy, so of course, he served her a mug of his best alcohol, even if he didn't manage to answer her question. The price of that drink is enough to make him more profits than he has made in a week. Here is your drink, milady. May I know what you wish to know and what should I call you? She took a drink from her mug. It was a rather sweet-tasting ale. Something that Naruto actually would enjoy, as she recalled. My name is Tsukiyumi Esdeath, and what I want to know from you, has a man named Naruto Uzumaki been anywhere in the capital? The bartender could not help but laugh at his good fortune. He met the man she asked about not even a week ago. Well, to answer your question, yes. I met Naruto Uzumaki. He was dressed in rather strange clothes. He said he was looking for his kids and asked me directions as he ordered exactly the same ale you were drinking. He apparently left with a rather busty blonde woman who wanted to rip him off his money. He apparently knew this and didn't fall for it. She had done that many times before, so I was impressed with him. He began to clean mugs as he looked at the woman who said her family name was Esdeath. That made him nervous. He would answer any of her questions if only to evade earning the anger of General Esdeath herself, for he would not survive it. Wise decision. Naruto is my lover and I know that those that earn his ire do not live to survive it. Do you happen to have any clues as to where he might be? Sadly, the bartender simply told her that he appears to like his bar, and thus he does tend to come to the place whenever he is in the capital. After all, he had a drink and fought a duel against Captain Ogre. You hear a lot of things when people don't notice you, but sadly he didn't know if he had a home in the capital. Tsukiyumi asked him how much she owed him for the drink and information, to which, much to her surprise, the bartender told her both were free. She asked him why. The bartender simply said if she was looking for this blonde man, she might become a repeat customer. Giving help and a first drink for free was him simply promoting his business. I know that everything that happened to me lately would get me labeled crazy by most. I know most would not believe my very existence, but I don't care. I decided to go to my favorite bar, because today I had a reason to celebrate, a very good, and almost miraculous reason. I am slowly regaining my skills and memories, and to make matters even better, my kids are alive again. What kind of a father would not be happy to have his precious kids back, safe and sound? I still can't help but wonder when these seals were placed on me, to mess up my memories so badly that I honestly thought I had 2 sons and a single daughter. Instead, I came to find out I had the opposite, 2 daughters and a single son. The horrible thing is I don't remember Tatsumi being such a disrespectful, foul-talking kid. Instead, I always felt like he was the respectful and obedient son any man would be proud to call his son, and that is not even taking into account that my 2 daughters seem to have a crush on that punk son of mine. That censoring does it. If I ever needed a censoring drink, this was it. I walked into the bar ignoring most of the other drunks. They never have anything that interesting to say. This is considered by many to be the dingiest, lowest bar in the capital, but unlike everywhere else, at least in this censoring bar, they don't water down your drinks, charge reasonable prices, and those that are regulars know that if there is a secret to be known, the bartender at this place knows it, and will only sell it to those he trusts. As I sat on a seat at the bar, the bartender began to glare at me for some reason. Naruto, you stupid censoring son of a bitch. What the hell did you do to my censoring bathroom? I told him I did something that has not been done in decades, cleaned it, and put some flowering pots to take care of the stench. He should be grateful instead of giving me this shit. He looked like he was about to growl when I said this. Naruto, the thing you call a stench helps people get over their hangovers, but I supposed I should be happy about you cleaning my censoring toilets for free. So order anything you want because today you get 1 drink on me. I couldn't help but laugh after what this gruff bastard said. Sure, a bottle of honey ale, not a glass, a censoring bottle. Something good happened to me and I want to censoring celebrate it. That caught the attention of some of the other regulars and asked me what the hell happened to me to make me want to do anything as cheerful as celebrate it. I didn't hold back and told them that my 3 kids were found alive and well, and are back home. So of course I am censoring happy about this. Not too long ago I thought they were all censoring dead, but they are alive, and I am going to celebrate it, even if I have to do that alone. The crazy thing is I guess my age is finally catching up with me, cause my memory isn't as good as it once was. I even had a nightmare of a lover who I think has been dead for decades. I know that if she was alive, she would be pissed that I never got to our wedding, but that is neither here nor there. The bartender and the others got a little quiet, and I swear that the air got a little colder all of a sudden. So Naruto, what was the family name of that lover of yours? If I know, maybe I can remember if she really is dead or not. I looked at the bartender and told him without wasting a second. Her family name was Esdeath. For some strange reason, this made the entire bar become so silent that it felt like I was in the middle of a graveyard. Just how in the world did you have a lover in that family? Don't you know that family raises them to be officers in the Imperial Army? I refused to believe such things. I told him that as a former Prime Minister, I had no need to prove myself to anyone, and if he didn't believe me, that was his problem, not mine. I poured myself a glass of ale and began to drink it. I got to say, in such a hot day as today, whatever is making the air colder is welcomed. I felt quite comfortable thanks to this, and the ice in my glass was not melting as fast as I expected. The only thing I had to complain about is why is my bartending friend not leaving this subject alone? Most others probably said that I was either nuts or making it up after they heard about me being a former Prime Minister, but he will not let this go. Look, I don't want to ruin your celebration, but not that long ago a lady from that family came here to ask questions about you. Chances are that someone in that family has a problem with you. If what you said is true, they may hold a grudge against you for seducing a noble's daughter. I told him it wouldn't matter in the least. It happened so long ago I don't think she and her family is even alive anymore. That is when I heard a woman speak from a nearby table. Had I not inherited my mother's tegu, you would be correct, as your first wife also died long ago, but you swore that I would get to be one of your wives, Naruto, and then you shamelessly left me waiting at the altar. Do you have any idea how humiliated I was when that happened? After all these years I come to find you even have children with someone else, children that you were supposed to have with me. So tell me, my dearest Naruto, what possible excuse do you have for doing all this to me? I looked at her wearing that blouse that apparently showed plenty of cleavage, her black robes, and what someone else might say extremely short shirt, with a pair of riding boots. She actually reminds me of the girl that I dreamt about. But this makes no sense. The girl that I once planned to make my second wife, by suggestion if not insistence of my first wife, had long lustrous blonde hair, her hair, and the girl who appeared in my dream had blue hair. Look, I appreciate a joke as much as the next person, but you can't be Tsukiyumi. There is no way. She had long blonde hair and not nearly as short as yours. My reasons for not appearing at the wedding with her are for her ears only. She quickly became furious and began to cause water to appear around us. And she was glaring at me. Think carefully of what you respond. Yes, my hair was once long ago blonde. Some compared it as precious as gold. But after my groom cruelly broke my heart and ruined my good name as he did, I became rather depressed. Had I not had a child later, I would still be as depressed as I was. In fact, my daughter also inherited my hair color when she was born, but it has gotten a little lighter as time went by. I have not come back to the capital to hear of your infidelity or the children you may have had. I want answers, Naruto. Why did you leave me at the altar? I looked at her and glared at her. Pretending to be someone I once loved was a low blow, to ruin my image among the common citizens even more so. If you were the Tsukiyumi that I was supposed to marry, then tell me one thing. What is my favorite dish? I never shared that single piece of information with anyone other than family or someone extremely close to me. Well, what is my favorite food? She apparently made all the water around us clean the floors and evaporate, as she couldn't help but start laughing as I said this. She looked at me and simply said ramen, obviously. To hear her say that is shocking but understandable. Very well, for what you wish to speak of we need to do so in a place where our privacy is secure. No one may know the answer to that question in this place other than you. Until such a place exists, I cannot answer the question you wish to ask of me. People who would do me and my kids harm may learn of what I said and cause harm. I hope that you understand. She immediately caused everyone in the bar to be pushed out of the place, as if hit by a massive wave, and that water suddenly formed a sphere around us. There, no one can listen. What possible excuse will you say to me for what you have done to me and my family's good name? The only way she could control water to this extent is that she inherited a tegu made from a danger beast that had this much control over water. You will not believe me even if I tell you, but fine, since you were willing to go this far to make sure nobody overhears my words. I have been under the effects of 3 extremely harmful seals, so I have lost much of my memories, and I am still trying to organize my thoughts to figure which are real, and which were implanted. My 3 children also suffered with these seals, and thanks to them they were all killed, since they inherited my ability as a Domfir. They were revived as soon as I remembered how to do so. Chances are that the reason why I didn't show up for what was supposed to be my wedding with her is that the one that used these seals caused me to forget everything about our engagement. It could have been any number of people, even people who would disapprove of you marrying me. To those that have done so out of pure malicious intent, my body has also suffered great harm, and I find myself severely weakened. But after my children were revived and back in my life, and even with so many memories still unclear to me, I decided to come to this bar to celebrate the return of my children. 3 of whom I adopted after I helped build a village down south. These 3, as far as I knew, were my only remaining family, my kids. She was not happy to hear that if her demeanor told me anything. You lost your memory, really? Is that the best excuse you could come up with? Do you have any idea how much ridicule and insults I endured after you never appeared on our wedding day? I was treated worse than a whore, a loose woman they dared to call me. Some even dared to call me a slut, but then they turned those insults on my mother, whom you know had a weak heart, to begin with. To see this happen to me and the shame that this brought to my family was so horrid that it caused her to die. I inherited her tegu, and upon inheriting this, I assumed her role as one of the Imperial Army's generals, as my mother had done, but my main goal was to find why would you dishonor me like this? Why did you hate me so much to do this much harm to me? And I only came to find you today, drinking the very same thing we enjoyed together, honey ale. I told her nothing I spoke as a lie. It was thanks to the help of a friend that I managed to even discover the seals that had been placed on me. They were somehow also placed on my kids. These seals are by no means merciful. They rob them of their memories and weaken them to the point some common thugs could do them in. They ended up falling in the clutches of some rather despicable people. But since they are my kids, they inherited from me my ability to be revived, and which is why they were able to be back with me. I told you time and time again I am vampiric in nature. Well, my kids are also the same way. How bad was this seal altering my memories? I trained all 3 of my kids since they learned to walk, and throughout it all I thought I had 2 sons and a daughter. But once the seal broke and they were revived, what did I come to see? I had 2 daughters and only 1 son. This is how deeply that damn seal manipulated my memories. I honestly worry that most of my memories have either been changed, replaced, or twisted somehow, and that is not even mentioning what the seal did to my body if I faced the same danger beasts I once killed for the first emperor again. There is no doubt that I would not survive a fight against some of them. My body is that much weaker. It was almost like one of the seals was designed to slowly destroy my body, corrupt it, or poison it, but thanks to the seals no longer being present, I can slowly work on my memories, and restore my mind and body, even if it will take no less than 2 years to be back at full strength. She looked at me and asked me to make an oath that what I said is true, or may I fall on my blade if I dared lie. I told her that if this will make her see I am not lying I will swear such an oath. Knowing exactly what she meant, the oath would be sworn on her imperial arms, and her imperial arms will activate and kill me should I lie after making this oath, usually as a short-term oath, so that shouldn't be a problem with me. She asked me how many women have called me husband. I told her at most 6 or 7, but then again I am a few thousand years old. But aside from my first wife here in the Empire, all the other ones, as much as I can remember, ended pretty badly, with my wife growing bitter and angry, and she continued to grow older and weaker in her senior years, while I will remain the same as on our wedding day. Something like that could basically kill any love she had for me, especially since I can't make them like I am. Much like me and my children, you must be born a vampire. She immediately asked about my kids. What father would not want to talk about the kids that were his pride and joy? I told them about my son, who much to my dismay had the unfortunate fate of being bitten by the saving people bug like I was. That son of mine would jump into a burning building if it means saving at least a single person. Hero wannabe doesn't begin to describe him, but unknown to him I am quite proud of his ethics and skill with the sword, my only kid who picked the blade as I did. My 2 daughters were as different as night and day. One loved to help around the house, mostly in the kitchen and washing clothes. And the other was a hunter, if she wasn't off hunting something to eat. She was growing it in a small parcel we owned in our village. Ieyasu could not be described better than with the term tomboy, but there is nobody that could match her with a pair of daggers, which makes sense since she did love to prepare food from scratch. Sayo, however, was a hunter through and through. No one could hope to defeat her in archery. She was also a skilled fisher and could lay traps that were very well made and placed. Her fruits and vegetables brought a great taste to any food that we ate. I told her, but sadly, much like many villages outside the capital, the heavy taxation was basically causing starvation and disease to run rampant. The only way to be free of these taxes was to buy the land where the village was made, but the price would be much more severe than most would expect. Some never even managed to collect or keep enough in several lifetimes. The only alternative was, according to my kids, to become officers in the Imperial Army, thanks to their high salary, or so they thought they would be able to help the village purchase the land. I was of course against it, but kids are impulsive when they are that age. Sometimes in their travels, they were ambushed, or knocked out using some drug, and the person who placed the seals on me did so again, but this time with my kids. They apparently lost all their memories of their training, and their bodies became much weaker, not as badly as what happened to me, but then again I think I had these seals on me for much longer than they did. She immediately asked me what was I doing lately. I couldn't tell her of Night Raid. She did mention being an Imperial general. If I told her, and that bastard probably already gave the order to have every member of Night Raid killed, she would be forced to accept that order and follow it. So I decided to talk with her about what she had been doing since last we met, and she asked me was necessary for me to tell her what I was doing. I simply said it would only be fair. Fine. I didn't want to say this, but I was, and in a sort of way am still pissed after you left me at the altar. I used that rage to fight against the enemies of the Empire. I figured use that anger constructively or beneficially, but the bitterness and sadness of what you did never left, so I took to drinking, and would sometimes find myself unconscious in my field tent. Stupid, I know. Eventually I met a fellow officer and we got married. I even gave birth to my precious baby girl. Her father died when a captain under my command turned traitor and tried to kill me. He took the killing blow intended for me, and killed the lousy traitor. After my baby girl grew up and became a young woman, she inherited my grandmother's imperial arms. Seeing this and her skill as both a warrior and tactician, I passed my rank of general to her. Last I heard, she was dealing with the barbarians in the north that attack our trading routes in that region. Well, that didn't make much sense to me. I went there a few times, and in fact, the people that live in the northern region of the empire are rather friendly and quite welcoming to others. But if Honest was the one that gave this order, it makes sense. I wouldn't trust Honest, truth to be told. He is not someone anyone should ever trust. You know as well as I do that I still work in the secret section that I made back when I held the position of Prime Minister. I think she found my last comment rather funny, since she started to laugh as I finished saying. So you actually have memories of you being Prime Minister and establishing Night Raid, but no memory of our wedding or even our engagement. That seal must have been very selective of the memories it messed with. But hearing what you said made me realize that your memories have indeed been messed with. You are not a natural Dhampir. You became one after you started hunting danger beasts with your friend, who was the first emperor at the time. Your first beast was a vampire danger beast, and as things would have it, you ended up drinking quite a bit of its blood before the fight was over. You told me this yourself. And secondly, any person who you bite and drinks your blood becomes a Dhampir like you are. I think those kids of yours must be really important to you. I asked what made her think that. She smiled as she took a gulp from her drink. For them to be Dhampir, it means you let them drink your blood, and you bite them, which is only done with the people. A parent who is trying to show affection to their child, or a man marking a woman as his mate. Your other wives are probably going to be as pissed off as I am, thinking that you went and abandoned them or ran off somewhere. Even if some of them die of what seems to be old age or other reasons, you know as well as I do if the ritual is not performed, it is only a matter of time before they come back to life on their own. I told her that was not exactly a pleasant idea. Since she was this upset, I would dread to think of how angry they would be after so many years away from each other, picturing all sorts of horrible comments, from accusations of cheating to being a philanderer being among the kind comments. You always had a way with words, and you managed to calm down my rage rather well. After you explain what happened, I will more than likely be present when they show up, so getting them to believe what happened to you should be a lot easier with you since you work in Night Raid. I imagine you still live in that old home of yours near your favorite hunting ground. What exactly makes you distrust the current Prime Minister? I looked at her and told her that the people of the northern region are actually typically quite friendly. They have to be to survive in such a harsh, cold environment. In my travels I met several tribes, and all of them were honest, honorable, and friendly folk. They would have little to no reason to attack the Empire. They are nomadic by nature. Hunting and gathering in the region was not easy, and the animals do tend to move depending on the season. One example is what you said about sending troops to deal with barbarians in the north. That is a danger to the Empire. From what I know of the people that live in that region, they would have no reason or desire to invade the Empire. If anything, it seems to me that Honest is after something in the north, something that could end up being harmful to the environment of the region. As for them being a danger to the Empire, it is actually the opposite. They have more to fear of the Empire than the Empire has any reason to fear them. She was quietly drinking when I finished saying that and asked me for another reason. I told her that many crimes committed by corrupt nobles in the Empire were more than likely instigated or ordered by Honest. He placed his kids, family, or people who swore loyalty to him to key positions within the Empire, and so far each and every one of them has committed acts that border on the inhumane. Then again, what could people expect from a cannibal like Honest? To begin with, chances are the only reason he sent troops to the north to kill those people is because he also sent some of his minions with those troops to get as many of those bodies back to him to add to his groceries. As for where I live, she can find that out after we finish our drinks, since she is coming to see my home with me after all. She laughed and told me she also wanted to see if I got rusty in other areas, making me think she wants to spar or do something like that. As we left the bar, I could feel the evil and greed come off people following us. I guess mentioning Night Raid and that I knew the location of their headquarters had a very much obvious effect. It made those that were agents of Honest focus on me, so much so they think I am stupid enough to lead them back the headquarters. As soon as we were far away from other people in some dingy alley not even petty criminals would go, I turned around and looked at the 5 individuals following Tsukiyumi and me. I better take care of them before they said something stupid that insults her. There won't be enough left of them to spread on a rice cracker if they do that. Alright fellas. Might telling me why you were following me and my lady here like a bunch of hooligans ready to jump us or rob us. Either way, you are going to tell me one way or another. I am simply giving you the chance to tell me while I am still friendly. One of them called me a censoring imbecile. Didn't I know that talking bad about Prime Minister Honest was practically me begging to be killed? Nobody may speak like that about the Prime Minister. Nowhere within the Empire and in the capital least of all. You might be dumber than a rock, and you might even be suicidal for what you said, but you said some pretty interesting things there, so we decided to follow you to see where you lead us or figure if what you said was true. We 5 are the ones that do the will of the Prime Minister, and he pays us well. I would say that is an adequate introduction. As for you moron, we don't care who you pretend to be, but saying such blatant lie that you were the very first person to be Prime Minister shows how stupid you are. You don't look any older than my censoring kid brother, and he was just as stupid as you are. Clearly, these 5 have no sort of respect for me at all, and the one that told me this looked more like a bandit than a spy. Since you decided to be this friendly, we are going to give you a chance, a single chance. Guide us where those censored that is Night Raid are hiding, and if what you said is true, you get to keep your pathetic worthless life. Refuse and we will kill you. Can't make it too difficult for a moron like you to understand. That is when I decided to snap my fingers and almost the entire alley was covered in smoke, thinking I set off a smoke bomb to escape. But that was not the case at all. 20 shadow clones had been hiding in the alley transformed to look like abandoned or thing that got thrown away. The smoke was them returning back to human form, and give them the cover they needed. The 5 idiots got shocked to see as 2 held them in place. 2 of them were holding the entire 5 of them in place. I was friends with Shikamaru, and let's say he was not very secretive about his clan techniques. Hell, he even promised to teach me some of them after I defeated him in shogi. The rest of the clones simply let out their fangs and fed on these 5 idiots till they were dry. As they dispelled, I got the memories of what they learned, and in truth, the 5 of them did worship Honest and do his bidding, but in reality, there was only one guy that actually worked for the fat bastard, the one that made me the stupid offer. I learned he had no intention of letting me and Tsukiyumi go at all. Once the other members of Night Raid were killed, we were supposed to be another 2 bodies to be butchered and cooked for the enjoyment of the man whom he worshipped. Never mind that he knew quite a few things not even Honest's personal guard knew. Which all in all was not exactly a bad thing for me. Najenda is going to have an absolute field day when I tell her every single thing I learned. She might not appreciate the methods I used, or the fact that I am bringing what is essentially a former imperial general with me, but there is no alternative. Once Tsukiyumi found me, I knew that even if I tried to get her to wait for me, she would not. The actions that I did under the effects of these censoring seals have made her not as trusting as she once was. I looked at her and held her closer to me, something she was clearly not expecting. As much to my surprise, she was actually blushing. Honestly, I didn't think she could still do that. I put my open hand up and looked at the sky. Alright Lubbock, don't bother pretending. I know you were listening to that entire mess, so might as well use your arms and get me and this lady back home, and I mean right now, or you will get to explain to Najenda why dinner was so censoring late. Immediately we both wrapped in threads like we had been cocooned in spider silk, and were pulled into the ground, and before Tsukiyumi overreacted, we were free and in the forest that surrounded our headquarters. The place we called home was not a few dozen feet away from where we appeared. She looked at the building and began to shake her head at me. Beloved, I know you stopped being Prime Minister a long time ago, and you were busy raising the kids you adopted, but I got to tell you, this old fortress is in shameful disrepair. I would say it is almost disastrously maintained, as in this is a disaster waiting to happen. Again, I still had to tell her about memory problems and a severely weakened and injured body. With the way I am, how much does she think I can honestly repair on my own? I have been under those damn seals for decades. It was not like it wasn't taxing on my body all by itself. Honestly, after the seals were removed, I felt like I was told to carry a mountain, at the bottom of the ocean, with both my freaking arms broken and tied to my back. I still managed to kill some danger beasts, but they were hardly any difficult enemies for me, and the people that I fought are next to nothing to a person who trained as I did, which was strange. My kids got killed by ordinary people. But again, they were under these damn seals much like I was. As I walked in, I was met by a rather convenient sight. I decided to get this over with as soon as possible. The one getting hugged by the blonde who looks like a bimbo is my son Tatsuki. The one cleaning her axe is Ieyasu, and I imagine since these two were slacking off or playing around, Seo is probably in the kitchen making lunch. I swear that out of all of them, Seo probably is one who's the most responsible and dependable one. Tatsuki and Ieyasu were not going to stay quiet after I said that and screamed that she was not. She was only better at cooking than they were. Tatsuki glared at me as he came towards me, and for the last time, it's not her fault she chose me to be her mate, so stop calling her a bimbo. You don't see me calling the stranger you brought back here with you that, do you? I looked at Tatsuki with such a cold glare that he immediately became quiet. And that is a smart thing to do, my son, but you are right, she shouldn't be unknown, at least not by you or your sisters. I would like to present our newest member to join Night Raid. She possesses imperial arms made from the blood of a water dragon danger beast. Her name is Tsukiyomi Esdeath, former general of the Imperial Army, retired, and future stepmother to you and your siblings, so you might want to show her some respect or she might decide that you need an attitude readjustment. Tatsuki didn't like that last part and asked what did I mean by that. I told him if he pisses her off enough she might decide to pull down his pants, put him over her knee, and spank him so hard that he never disrespects her or anyone ever again. Tsukiyomi decided to say something before I could continue with my little disciplinary lecture, or I could quite easily kill him. It would be little trouble for me, and dying might be a good way to curb that bad attitude. After all, he is a Dhampir, we can easily revive him later. Even if you choose not to, well, you still would have our 2 daughters, and I happen to be still in my prime, so if we really try we could have some kids of our own. I already had 1 daughter before our reunion, and is the current General Esdeath. So do you want me to kill you or will you be a good boy and listen to what your mom tells you? Well, that is a question only an absolute idiot would not recognize that it was a question at all. It was not even a threat, it was a promise, and knowing her the way that I do, I certainly don't want to be the one on the receiving end of her ultimate attack. Since I was involved with the creation of all current Imperial arms, I know quite a bit about the one she has, and it can be terrifying. The element was often called the element of life, and it was often revered and worshipped as such, but in ancient past, it was also called something else, the gateway to the underworld. All water flows to and comes from the underworld, and as such water can lead a person to an early grave. So in many ancient cultures, the water element was also feared. Some of the ancient cultures I knew of were coastal civilizations, so that made sense in a sort of way. The cause of their fear was tides, hurricanes, tsunamis, and even floods. Given that these cultures that I knew lived by the water, it means if anyone knew the danger of water, it would be them. Tatsuki may practice the sword like I do and is quite prodigious in his use of the shadow clone technique. But I often wondered if he also gained my intelligence or wit. Nice try, lady, but you can't be General Tsukiyomi Esdeath. Even out in the boonies people have heard about her. She is a well-known and feared lady in the Empire. She is an infamous man-hater. There is no censoring way my dad of all people got her to fall in love with her, let alone marry him, let alone get her to even consider joining Night Raid. Considering Prime Minister Honest keeps increasing the bounty of all known members, and he doesn't even give an option of bringing them alive. So fess up, lady. Who the hell are you? Well, that censoring answers my question. It seems my son did in fact inherit something from me. Being a hyperactive knucklehead, I still am having a hard time believing that I was as blunt and reckless as he is acting right now when I was his age. You seem to think that you know quite a bit about me, and that is good. But what you know is mostly from rumors, and that sort of information is not the most reliable. You want proof that I am who I said I am. Fine. Give me a bucket of water and I will show you that I am who I said. I was already on thin ice with her, given what these seals caused me to do to her, so I did as she asked and I handed her a bucket full of crystal clear water. She put her hands together like she was doing a hand sign, and the water came rushing out and began to contort till all the water changed form to look like 7 massive snakes made of pure water. If you know of my imperial arms, then you know I am the only one that has this ability, or do you want to fight my snakes to figure it out in a more physical manner? After what your father did to me in our past, how in the world would I not come to hate every single horny immoral bastard that dared to ask me out on a date or worse? Leonie, seeing the fish in the giant snake construct, leapt at one of them, trying to get the fish within it, breaking the tension that was building. Well, since this was getting me nowhere, I decided to concentrate on cooking something for everyone to eat. Tsukiyomi joining Night Raid means that it was in a sense something that even Najenda would want to celebrate. Having her joins means that Night Raid military power had increased immensely, and this would be something that would make Honest worry or become scared shitless. Either way, any reason to ruin that bastard's day was a good reason to celebrate. As the food was brought to the dining room, people were really happy to see all the food that I prepared. My kids were practically beaming as they saw the food. Since you are going to be our mom, you might as well know. Dad is an expert when it comes to several skills, and as much as I hate to admit it, neither Seo nor Ieyasu has ever managed to cook better than him. I know I am not good enough to be his prep cook, much less be as good as Dad cooking food. I would hate to argue with Tatsuki, but I happen to know my cooking skills are not as high as he thinks. I consider myself at most a competent cook. I know that already, Tatsuki. It's one of the reasons I love your dad in the first place. I met him years ago, and the cook that was assigned to our base got sick. Just happens that when this happens, the Prime Minister at the time was doing an inspection. To my shock, he came into the mess hall kitchen and started cooking for the entire base. Honestly, I was amazed at the variety and how delicious the food was. Food in a military base is never this good, to begin with. She looked at her food and began to think back on the last time she ate something I had prepared. People say that an army marches on their stomach, but let me tell you, an army can be an expensive thing for the empire. The larger it gets, the more it will cost to feed, equip and give them proper supplies. As such, nobody should expect the food to be stuff you eat at one of those pricey restaurants nobles eat at. The empire will cut down on expenses, and if they have to give stuff that not even your pet dog would eat to save money, you better believe it. Back when I was still general, I had my troops kill off danger beasts, not only because they are a danger to innocent civilians in the area, but not only because some of these parts could, in theory, be made into imperial arms for the troops, but because many danger beasts are actually edible. I have seen Naruto butcher a giant earth dragon, and using nothing but his clone, squeeze it completely dry, drink some of it, and what did he say? That this was the good stuff. Indeed, several members of Night Raid told her that was not something he only had done back then. In fact, several had seen him do that very same thing recently, and yes, Naruto indeed called that dragon blood the good stuff. I am not going to deny that I happen to enjoy how the blood of a tough enemy tastes. It is, however, not just a matter of dietary preference. I gain much from the blood I drink, and so do Ieyasu, Seo, and Tatsuki, as would be the case for any other Dhampir. In the old times, people used to say that you are what you eat, and for those of my kind, it tends to be a little more literal. Some imperial arms are nothing more than the blood of danger beasts, and as such it wouldn't be strange for someone like me to gain abilities, and skills, and grow stronger from drinking the blood of these creatures. Dragons especially are naturally stronger than most people realize. Lubbock simply laughed and said that I was sort of preaching to the choir. Every person who has imperial arms can tell this is the case, since they were all made using body parts and organs of such dangerous creatures. Mine gives me the ability to produce and use threads like I am a spider that can breach the very fabric of reality. But people, I guess, got every member of Night Raid has one of these things. Bullet has an armor that is basically the most vicious dragon that ever existed. I don't even want to imagine what sort of creature was killed to make that sword Akame uses, but all I know, I wouldn't want to be on the business end of it. I only told him if this was his true desire, then avoid peeping when the women in Night Raid take a bath and respect their privacy. To which he accused me of being a coward for not daring to face the danger to be able to delight seeing the bodies of such powerful and beautiful women. I had very little to say on this particular topic. I made no attempt to hide the fact that I am a lot older than what I appear, and as such the hormonal-driven decisions and mistakes of a much younger man were, if anything, stupid and futile to me. The very notion of having to sneak to see a woman's naked body in ways not very clear or emotionally engaging way was foolish at best, and disrespectful at worst. If a beautiful lady wishes for a man to see her and enjoy the sight of her naked form, she will take action and make it happen. It is her body, her decision, and nobody has any right to interfere in that essential right. He accused me of sounding like a virgin who never seen a bouncy pair of censored my entire life. I took a spoon and decided to eat some of my soup before I decided to say anything to calm down my emotions. To respond immediately would be too impulsive. It would cause this discussion to devolve into a complete argument with little to no logic. I told him that I had lived for far longer than most of his family have. I have been married and fathered quite a few children, many of which were long dead. Only a fool considers censored to be the best part of the relationship. It is such a minor part, that if a person focuses too much on it, it is like a finger pointing towards the moon. Don't focus on the finger or you will miss all the heavenly glory. Tatsuki was practically having a hard time breathing while eating his food because he was laughing his ass off when I said that, having a really hard time stopping his laughter as he heard that famous quote, but nobody knew why the hell was he laughing so hard. Finally Najenda decided to look at the newest member and she decided to ask her something. Tsukiyumi, I know that you have been an imperial general for far longer than most of our members have lived, so you don't have any feelings against the fact that we are going to end up fighting against many nobles of the empire, the current prime minister, and if we don't take care of things fast enough, we might end up fighting against the very emperor himself. I know we can trust you since Naruto was the one that thought that you would be a good member of our group, but I need to ask because I don't want to cause you unnecessary torment. Tsukiyumi couldn't help but laugh. She looked at Najenda and the other members of Night Raid. I think you don't realize. Naruto knew, however, that once I found him, there is no force in heaven or earth that could manage to separate me again from my man. Even if we didn't get to our wedding due to those seals, knowing what happens, I do consider him my husband, and no wife would leave her husband to deal with all this garbage by himself. I'm going to be there to help my husband, and nobody is going to be stupid enough to get in my way. So of course I joined Night Raid to help Naruto. Feeling bad about this? Yes, I do. That these corrupt bastards exist and are keeping me from finally enjoying my married life with my husband. Never mind that he is far too busy to revive his other wives, and yes, I mean wives, all 7 of them. Najenda asked her if one of those wives would be the sister of the first emperor. She laughed and told her that indeed she is, and out of all his wives she is probably the one that is currently in heaven wishing that she be revived. Why ask about her? You probably figured out that it was her that first established a harem for her husband, not an unusual practice for people related to royalty back then. Yes, she loved him just as much as I did, except she didn't have to suffer the humiliation of being left at the altar, thanks to those damned seals. No, Naruto, I may forgive you, but that doesn't mean I stopped being angry about what happened thanks to those seals. Mine looked at her and asked her how useful can she probably be since she was older than anyone in the Night Raid if not the Empire. Honestly, Naruto wanted to be right next to mine to try and stop her from saying even more things that would piss her off. I wouldn't worry about that. I have the longevity of a dragon, and dragons can live for several thousand years. As for my power, I can control the element of life, water, so thanks to this back in my army days I was quite deadly. I can use it to knock out if not outright kill my enemies. Over half the body of a normal person's body is made up of water, and I can control every drop of it. Do you honestly think you would survive if I made every ounce of water within you boil? Or if I caused all your blood to freeze? Tsukiyumi was quite proud of this fact, almost like she was telling every other woman present that she would remain youthful and beautiful in appearance long after they all died of old age, which somehow irked mine something awful for some strange reason as she looked at Tatsuki waiting to see if he would say something after the woman that would be his stepmother said that. And if that is not rare enough for you, I also have the ability of dragons for inheriting the memories and skills of my ancestors. Which means unlike most people I remember exactly all my memories from my previous life, and as it turns out, in that life, I was also someone who once fell in love with Naruto. I much like him was trained and was a kunoichi, a lady ninja, and I happen to know all of my skills from back in that life and all my memories. If I have to be honest, aside from Naruto, there is one thing I miss more than anything from that life of mine, and that would be my snow bunny, Mr. Bunbun. You were so sweet to my pet when we first met. I was getting this strong suspicion that Tsukiyumi was someone I met during the wave mission, and that made me feel nervous for some reason because if she is who I think she is, she will not be happy that I ended up killing her and her stepfather. So I decided to ask her for her name from her previous life, and with a smile she said Haku from the Yuki clan. Thanks.